Welcome along, Seahawks Draft Blog emergency live stream. Russell Wilson has been traded to the Denver Broncos. We're going to react to the trade. We're going to discuss whether it is a good deal for the Seahawks. We are going to discuss what this means for the future of the franchise. We are going to get into the draft options that they have moving forward, the quarterback options, what it all means. There is so much to get into here, Robbie. If you want to join in the comments section, please do. Your super chats are more than welcome as well today ahead of this huge news. I'm dropping everything. Listen, guys, I am going to stay on this live stream until you guys have had enough, frankly. And that includes you, Robbie. You just tap out if you want to at any point. But I'm going to stay on this and discuss this for as long as anybody wants. If you have questions that you want to chuck in there, if you have got super chats that you want to send in to keep this thing ticking along, please do. I'm inviting other people in. If anybody is watching this who's been on any of the streams that we have done in the past and wants to jump in, just send me a DM on Twitter. I will send you the link. I think Joe Fann is going to join us very, very shortly to give his assessment on this. But huge news, Robbie. And look, we've been saying this. We've been on this for a long, long time. Going back towards the end of last season, we were talking about the friction that was probably going to build if the season finished how it did in 2020. And then they have a 7-10 season. And despite everything that Russell Wilson and Pete Carroll and John Schneider said to the media, that are very happy media in Seattle were very happy to recycle the team's new, what they're putting out there. The truth is that this was always brewing in the background. There was always a distinct possibility that this would happen. And so soon after Aaron Rodgers had agreed to stay in Green Bay, a trade is done. Joe Fann is joining us as well. Joe, great to have you with us. Look, just give us your reaction to this Russell Wilson trade and what are you thinking right now?
Yeah, well, selfishly, my first thought was vindication because you and I had so many conversations last offseason, and there were a lot of people that wanted to say we were crazy and we were just clickbait artists and all of this. And yeah, I mean, this is something that shouldn't shock anyone, in my opinion. I think this is the key line. I want to make this very clear. Like, as we can talk about the Aaron Rodgers stuff and that deal that's coming out, and we don't know the full terms of it. But as Adam Schefter said, after weeks of negotiations, so this didn't just come up out of nowhere with Aaron Rodgers staying in Green Bay. This is something that has been in the works, if you want to take Adam Schefter for his word, which I feel comfortable doing. My reaction is, I get it. I get why they did it. Now, I think the return would look a lot better if they hadn't just sent 2 first-round picks to the Jets for Jamal Adams. If that deal didn't happen, I think you'd look at this and say, well, he's going to want more money here soon. How many more years does he have of being the elite of the elite? And so you look at that, you got 2 really capable players, a potential stopgap quarterback, 2 first-rounders, 2 second-rounders. That's a pretty good haul. And I get why they did it, because if you're looking at the status quo where you're limited in terms of what you can spend, and you look around the NFC West and saying we might be 4-4 here in terms of where our trajectory is going. So I genuinely get it. And I think a lot of fans are going to say this is the worst trade in franchise history. What were they thinking? And if you want to play the game of they picked John Schneider and Pete Carroll over Russell Wilson, I think that's fair to ask that question and make those gripes. But in terms of, I think it's a necessary reality check. And now all of a sudden you think back to Pete Carroll saying that arrogance that we used to have, we don't have it anymore. I think there was a real realization over these last couple of months and even going into that last season that, even with Russell Wilson's injury, were we really one of the best teams in football? Probably not. And the only way they were going to ever recoup their draft capital was by trading Russell Wilson. And here we are. So it came out of nowhere. The fact that there was very minimal rumors outside of just the generic, is he going to get traded, I think is wild, but it's crazy. It's a crazy day in Seattle sports history, certainly.
I think the big lesson here, Joe, is a team will tell you what they want you to report and what they want you to know. And stuff goes on behind the scenes that we will not be privy to. You've just got to read the tea leaves. And this has been on the cards for a while. A divorce, a parting. Was it going to be last year? Was it going to be this year? Was it going to be next year? It felt inevitable. Let's have a chat about the trade. And Robbie, I want your views as well, because we've not come to you yet. But let's have a look at the trade as it is. The Broncos get Russell Wilson and a 4th rounder. The Seahawks get 2 first-rounders and 2 second-rounders, a 5th rounder. Drew Lock, Shelby Harris, and Noah Fant. Now, my initial reaction, because I've seen people already going, what? No, no 3 first rounders. For me, this is a better deal. I'll tell you why. Because if you can't find a quarterback this year, let's say that you do have to go with a Tyrique Taylor, a Mitch Trubisky, as horrifying as that may well be. There are 2 names to keep an eye on in the draft next year. Bryce Campbell and Will Levis at Kentucky. If you have a second rounder next year and a first, then you've got the stock to move up easily if you're not in range to get one of those 2 and move up. So you've covered your bases by having more stock next year, because I'm going to assume that one of those seconds is next year. I think that is fair. I know that if you had an extra first rounder, you could still use that. But I think having the stock next year is a good thing. And they may well have a quarterback in mind this year. That means that all of that is a moot point. We saw that picture at the weekend with them, Pete Carroll and Lane Kiffin and Monty Kiffin having a lovely time with Matt Corral at the Combine. Was that a coincidence? Who knows? The Seahawks have drafted a quarterback from Kiffin's system in Alex Magoo in the past. So they've been down that road. They've drafted from that scheme. It's very exciting, Robbie. It's very hard to sort of digest and try and cover everything in one sentence, isn't it, really? But what do you think? What is your reaction?
Yeah, you know what's funny is you and I talked off air after our last podcast last week, and we said Tuesday will be a big day because we knew Aaron Rodgers wanted to make his his decision by Tuesday before the franchise deadline. News came out today that he signed a massive extension. I did not expect it to escalate this quickly. I'm gobsmacked. I'm shocked. I'm trying to figure it all out, and initial reaction off of off the trade compensation, again, where's the 3 first, those kind of things. But it'll be really interesting to see how they approach this going forward. It had to happen. I think, we've talked about this time and time again. Either they needed to extend Russ or they needed to trade him so we could get rid of this drama. We're all tired of it. And now we have something different to look forward to. I don't know if Drew Lock is the guy that you want to roll the dice with, but hey, listen,
he's just a look. People are going to overreact to the Drew Lock thing, aren't they, Joe? But
yeah,
Drew Lock is just a guy you get in and you throw into the mix. That's it. They're not. Drew Lock is not the future franchise quarterback of the Seattle Seahawks unless he earns that right. He's just a guy you get. Noah Fant's a former first-round pick, by the way. He's a former top 20 pick. Mm-hmm. And now you don't have to spend money on Gerald Everett, who had a horrible end to the season with the turnovers in the Niners game and the drop in Arizona. Now you've got Noah Fant. Shelby Harris is regarded as a useful defensive lineman, and you've got a body for quarterback, and you've got presumably the number 9 overall pick. Look, they want a pass rusher, don't they? I read a mock draft earlier that had Kayvon Thibodeau lasting to number 9. Who would have thought that he would have been a Seahawk 6 months ago when he was tearing it up for Oregon? If it's not him, Jermaine Johnson had a fantastic Senior Bowl. So they can go and get a pass rusher. They've got a tight end. They've got a defensive tackle. They've got money to spend. They can retain their own. For me, there's a lot of benefits to this, and they can move forward as a franchise. And it had to be one or the other, didn't it? They either had to commit to Russell Wilson, be prepared to pay him a fortune, or they had to move on.
Yeah, yeah, totally. You're exactly right. I'm going through all, I just kind of feel like the Kermit the Frog gif with the sipping the tea. I mean, that's just sort of my mood right now. And I don't want to get too petty on this stream.
No, be as petty as you want.
We dealt
Joe.
with so much bullshit last year of people want to question your credibility and say you're just making stuff happen to get clear. And you're just open your eyes, people. There's enough smoke here to indicate something is not right. And it's all of it. It's just practically they had to make a decision. You're either going all in or you're moving him, period. But beyond that, the fraction that did exist and the thought that, things weren't A-okay with Russell Wilson and the Seahawks. I got so sick of the much ado about nothing crowd, and it was just exhausting. We were I can't, we had this conversation so many times. We can't force you to think logically and look at this at face value of what it is and say, yeah, there's something to this. I don't know. It's crazy. I also, there's a lot of, you look at the AFC West quarterbacks now,
wow.
My goodness, what a juggernaut. The whole AFC in general, an absolute juggernaut. Russell Wilson's got a ton of weapons. It's going to be fun to watch him play with Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy. Javonte Williams. That offense is sick. But now you look at, is DK Metcalf going to sign an extension this offseason? Without knowing who the quarterback is going to be, what's he going to do? Wow. That's my next question. So This is going to be from a purely onlooker standpoint. It's going to be fascinating to see how this all goes down.
And as a huge Seahawks fan, Joe, I'm excited. And I wanted to be excited about what happens next. And look, I am embracing the unknown at this point. I'm thinking, okay, let's see what happens. And for me, being in this position is more interesting than going into free agency with the status quo, going into the second tier of free agents, signing a few journeymen, having another season like the last 5, and being in the same position again in 12 months, having the same conversations. This is more appealing to me, this kind of rebuild, reset, complete revolution that is happening now than going down the same old path. And look, we want to change, Robbie. We wanted to see something different this year. What have we seen? We've seen huge coaching changes and philosophical changes in defense in terms of what they're going to be doing there. We've seen Russell Wilson depart. Who knows what happens with DK Metcalf? What are they going to do with Bobby Wagner now? Are they going to move on from him and go complete rebuild at this point? It just feels like there's so much more to happen coming up. So, and it's hard to know sort of how to dissect this and where to start with, because I'm seeing in the comments, people are saying that the trade's not enough. Is the trade enough, Robbie? Have the Seahawks got enough back for Russell Wilson? What do you think?
I don't know. You remember my last trade offer? I was gunning for the house. I wanted everybody. If you're going to trade,
you wanted too much.
I wanted too much, probably. Yeah, but I don't know. I guess it depends on what they do with the picks, right? I don't love the players in return. Shelby Harris for me is a guy. He's a journeyman defensive lineman. He doesn't feel like a guy that is going to come in and dominate or anything like that. But I mean, he's a guy to throw in there. And, Noah Fant. I mean, if we can use him right. I mean, we've never been able to seem to use our tight ends very well, but if he can come in and play well, I think that's good. I just don't know. I don't know. I'm still trying to digest this as well. This is interesting time. I can tell you what, there's a couple things I'm happy with. I'm happy with the drama being over about Russell Wilson, because we've been dealing with this for the last 2 years. And, kind of as Joe was saying, just the vindication of just knowing that, it wasn't just clickbait. This wasn't just like trying to get followers or views. And this is something that we've been talking about for some time. And now it's come to the fruition that it's true. So
they could have waited, they could have done it a bit early before I published a 3-round mock draft, which took about 4 hours to write, because now I'm going to have to do another one. Joe, do you think it's a good deal? What do you think of the actual trade now that we know what it is?
I think it is. I think fans had an illusion of how much bigger the package could be. I think it's pretty fair in terms of, again, he's going to be expensive and only get more expensive likely with his next deal, or at least that's something they're going to have to deal with and figure out. I think there are legitimate questions as to how many years does he have left of being elite. Had the Jamal Adams trade not happened, I think Seahawks fans. Now, there's going to be a segment of Seahawks fans who think if you move on from Russell Wilson, no matter what the haul is, it's the dumbest trade in franchise history. Everyone should be fired. So, let's put them aside and talk to the rest of Seahawks fans who think that trading Russell Wilson makes some sense. They just want to feel like you get market value. I don't know how much more you were going to get for Russell Wilson, who take out the injury the last year and a half. So I guess a full year of games. You take out the kind of, let's call it 8 games where he wasn't his best because we call it the finger injury, but the 8 games plus the playoff game in 2020 to end the season, plus everything that we saw fully healthy in 2021. How much more are you giving that guy or team for that guy who is on the other side of 30, whose athleticism is waning, who no longer is a super big threat to run the football? I think there are legitimate questions. Do I still believe in Russ, that he's a great quarterback and will be productive in Denver? Yes. But again, 2 firsts, 2 seconds. I think Noah Fant is a really fine tight end. Shelby Harris is serviceable. You get a sort of stopgap quarterback, maybe, if you can't find anybody else in Drew Lock. I think it's a good way to jumpstart the rebuild. Again, it would be so much more palatable if the Jamal Adams trade never happened.
Oh, yes, the other bugbear of our debates that we were having a year ago, Joe.
The gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah, it really is, isn't it? But, the thing about Drew Lock is, as mediocre as you could argue Drew Lock is, I still think having him on a rookie contract and seeing what you have there maybe is more palatable than spending $10 million for 2 years of Mitch Trubisky, because then you're paying a lot more. Is Trubisky any better than Drew Lock? I don't know. You've got somebody in there so that if the draft doesn't work out in your favor, let's say Matt Corral isn't there at 41, for example, if he is the guy that they like, or Malik Willis or whoever it is, then you've got somebody who has started in the NFL who you can try and progress with the next year. I'm sure they'll probably bring in another veteran. Maybe Tyrod Taylor comes in or somebody like that. Remember in 2012, they had Matt Flynn, Tavares Jackson, and Russell Wilson. I suspect they will try and have a competition like that again. Look, the only thing is you bringing up Jamal Adams there, Joe, makes me think. The only thing that makes me pause is the fact that it's 2 first-round picks only, and Jamal Adams cost 2 first-round picks. But then you have to remember, it's 2 seconds. It's a former top 20 pick. It's a defensive lineman who will contribute, and it's a potential quarterback who may or may not start for the Seahawks, who's got a big arm, who is mobile. People forget that about Drew Lock. He's very mobile. It hasn't worked for him in Denver. We'll see if it works for him. Maybe Seattle's a better fit. I'm not saying that he's going to have the success that Ryan Tannehill had, but a lot of people wrote Ryan Tannehill off when he left Miami. He's managed to turn his career around in Tennessee. Doesn't mean Drew Lock will do it. It just means that it's happened with other people.
You're right. It is more, and significantly more. But again, I think when we're looking at Jamal Adams, what he is, the positional value, all of that, the fact that those packages are even in the same ballpark is, I think, what makes it hard to stomach. Yes, it is more. And again, I just said, I think it's as much as you could have gotten for Russell Wilson. It would just be there. It's hard to look at the 2 trades that just happened and say, okay, Jamal Adams still on the roster, has the richest contract in the history of safeties. He cost 2 first-round picks. It just makes it tougher to swallow. It's sort of like, I would compare it to the conversation of like, should the Seahawks be in the market for an $8 to $10 million wide receiver, as Jeremy Fowler reported they were poking around? I think that sort of story is much more palatable, and like you'd get a little more excited if Creed Humphrey was on the roster and not D. Eskridge. You know, it's those sorts of things that change the conversation. Do the Seahawks need a go-to third option in the passing game? 100%.
Yes.
But everyone looks at the roster and would say, it should be that guy who they drafted in the 2nd round. That's what they used that pick for. They shouldn't need to add $8 to $10 million on top of that in expense. Now, if the trade happens, or not the trade, if they draft Creed Humphrey and they still go through this year, and it's like, man, they just don't have a legit go-to guy. It wasn't one of the tight ends. They need somebody. They got to go spend $8 to $10 million and get that guy. 100%. That's why the Rams went and got Odell Beckham before, that was before the Robert Woods injury. I mean, that was their 3rd guy. So I don't think anyone looks at that and says, no, you can't do that because you have DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. Well, some people would, because some people are irrational. Which is why they didn't want Odell Beckham in the first place. But you know what I mean? So it's all in context of what has already happened. And it doesn't mean the Seahawks shouldn't have made that trade, or it doesn't mean they shouldn't go get another wide receiver. It just changes the perception when it actually goes down of, okay, in a vacuum, this deal is pretty darn good. And I'm not sure how much more they could have gotten for him.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Look, I just traded 2 firsts for a safety, and like that's just hard to stomach.
That is. I don't know if you guys are seeing this, but Evan Macy is tweeting that the Seahawks are now open to trading Tyler Lockett as well.
Who is Evan Macy?
He's the ESPN guy, or no, he's a NFL Network analyst.
You see, this is what I don't get. So they're open to trading Tyler Lockett. Okay, doesn't Tyler Lockett have a ridiculous dead cap hit because he only signed a contract last year? And if they are willing to trade Tyler Lockett, why are they not trying to trade our friend Jamal Adams as well? I mean, it's that to me. I mean, I'll try and do the numbers out while we're on here, but that report doesn't make any sense because it would cost millions to move Tyler Lockett, I think, unless somebody can correct me on that in the comments or something.
Someone just said it would cost $18 million if we made the trade.
Yeah, Kurt says it will cost $18 million to get rid of Tyler Lockett. So unless you're going to get like some ridiculously high pick for Tyler Lockett from Denver or something like that, then why would that happen? That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Somebody has pointed out in the comment section that Jordan Davis, aka Thanos from the Marvel superhero movies, is now in play for the Seahawks at number 9, which is true. They know if they want Jordan Davis, they could draft him at number 9. But I'm sort of, my eye, as soon as the trade was made, was towards Jermaine Johnson and Kayvon Thibodeau, because I think that's the player that they've said they want. They want a game wrecker. They want a game wrecker off the edge. That's what Clint Hurt has said. And Pete Carroll said they want another Darrell Taylor. Well, they weren't going to get that guy at 41, but they can get him at number 9, which is Thibodeau or Jermaine Johnson. So very, very interesting prospects there. But Jordan Davis, why not? I mean, I could turn my nose up at after what he did at the combine. That was exceptional, and I'm sure we'll get into that. And Matt Corral, Joe, don't feel like you've got to stay any longer than you want to. If you ever want to just shoot, bail, just go, man. It's whatever. I'm going to stay on here for a long time. Same for you, Robbie. If you ever wanted to bail, just shoot off. You don't have to stay any longer than is necessary. But
hey, listen, I just canceled my meetings for the rest of the day. I am here for the long haul.
Okay. Well, you settle in, man.
I will probably dip. I don't have much more to say. I just think it's crazy. A lot of emotions. It's fun to be on the outside of the beat reporting world of where I could just sort of react emotionally and tweet out whatever the hell I want about it and bring back receipts and, it's just, I don't know. I just think back to all the conversations that you and I had, Rob, and how many people called us crazy. And
go and enjoy that tea, Joe.
Yeah,
you're absolutely correct.
Little tea time.
There's a few people who are probably, I don't know, they're grinding their teeth a little bit today because there was even people writing articles this week saying it's a non-story. Can we all move on? And yet, what's the Golden Tate used to do? Here we are. He's gone to Denver.
I've still seen some of Russ still has to approve the trade, so it might not be done yet. And it's like, come on,
let it go.
The Broncos tweeted out the Wilson volleyball from Castaway.
Yeah.
As someone, let me tell you this: I worked for a team. I worked for multiple teams, but when I was with the Niners, I mean, those are not tweets that are sent. Especially for something of magnitude of this, they can't people would be legitimately fired if they sent that tweet and the trade wasn't done and it somehow fell through. So this deal is done. They don't get the okay to do that. That's a high level thing because no one wants to be the Colts where they welcome Josh McDaniels as the new head coach, then he pulls out. And that's why a lot of times something will be official and it won't be tweeted out by the team days later because they wait till pen is on paper because, so crazy. And we're going to have more fun conversations because this is just the beginning. So Rob, I appreciate you. Robbie, good to see you, man.
Joe, you too, man.
Okay. Thanks for jumping on. Enjoy it. Somebody said, go and burn down Twitter, Joe. And I agree. Enjoy yourself, man. Go and enjoy yourself. It's Joe Fann. Great to have him with us. We may have one or two other guests as well, because as I said, me and Robbie are going to stay here until you guys have had enough. We have had a couple of super chats. I missed the first one. I apologize for that. If you send them in, we will show them up on the screen. I'll read them out and give a shout out. And look, Robbie's dropped everything. I've dropped everything. I've actually kicked my family out of the room that I'm in to be able to do this. So if you want to send a super chat, much appreciated. Slacker Hero says, Rob, you called it. There was too much smoke. Not going to lie, we're still shocked and sad that Russell Wilson won't retire a Seahawk, choosing 70-year-old Pete Carroll over Russell Wilson, too high a gamble. Shake my head if they draft Matt Corral to replace Russell Wilson. I want to address that, Robbie, okay? Because I don't think this is in any way whatsoever the Seahawks choosing Pete Carroll over Russell Wilson. This is the Seahawks listening to their GM, John Schneider, in my opinion. I don't think that Pete Carroll was massively motivated to move on from Russell Wilson. I think that, and I've heard this, that it really impacted Carroll and Schneider when what happened last year happened. When Wilson was pushing and for things to be done his way, shall we say, when he spoke to Dan Patrick, when that tweet went out from Adam Schefter, that impacted Pete and John. And there was no offer that they felt that they wanted to accept a year ago. And they took that on the chin and they lived with it. But what has happened in the last year? The talk has not stopped. It's continued behind the scenes. People have tried to deny it, but it's always been there, hasn't it, Robbie? And Russell Wilson's had an injury and has not looked great. And I think they see this as simply as this, Robbie. They don't want to pay him $45 million to $50 million next year. I don't think John Schneider has any interest in that as the GM, and I think he's made that clear, that he does not want to have another negotiation with Mark Rodgers. It's as simple as that. And the minute that you determine as a general manager and as a vice president of football operations, which Pete Carroll is, that you are not prepared to pay this quarterback the money that Aaron Rodgers has just paid today, you have to move on. And the fact that they were working in a seller's market means that this deal came together. It's as simple as that. And I don't want people to couch this as they've picked Carroll over Wilson. It's as simple as that. And I understand it, Robbie, and I can live with it. They didn't want to pay him 45 to 50 million, which is how the market has been reset now. And they've got the best offer that they can get. Apparently, Washington offered 3 first-round picks or picks in the next 3 drafts. I think I read from somebody just reported on Twitter. I think it's Schefter or Jeremy Fowler. But Wilson didn't want to go to the East Coast, play for a toxic franchise. Seahawks didn't want to trade him into the NFC. Although they are going to play Russell Wilson and the Broncos this year in Seattle. But they're going to play him, once every 4 years. Yeah. This may be the only time. And actually, do you know what? I hope Russell Wilson gets a fantastic reception when he comes back to Seattle. Yeah. He's the only quarterback who has ever won a Super Bowl in this city. And I'm sure that he will get a fantastic reception. But that is it to me, Robert. It's as simple as that. They chose not to pay Wilson $50 million a year. They've traded him. They're going to try and build a great defense, a loaded offense, and they're going to try and get a cheap quarterback, and they're going to try and do what they did in 2012. And just one other point that I want to make, which is important, because I've gathered my thoughts a little bit now. People will say, quite fairly, they don't want to trust Pete and John to be the ones to go out and use the picks that they've acquired and the resources that they've acquired from Denver. I get that. Totally understand that point of view. Let me just remind you, though. Pete Carroll and John Schneider built a Super Bowl team for this franchise. So it's been crappy for the last few years. But they built a legendary roster a decade ago. And I'll give them a chance to do it again.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing I thought, when Aaron Rodgers' contract come out, I went and I posted on your blog. It was just like, do we really want to pay Russell Wilson $45 million to $50 million a year? And that's like, I mean, that was a hard pill to swallow, especially when you're not sure what they're doing with the resources, really building them around them. And like we said, this is the trade that had to happen, or you needed to extend them. And I just think they probably saw that as a dollar sign that they didn't want to match. And this is obviously something that's been in the works for weeks now. And, for it to come out as quickly as it did, I think, I get why people are upset. I get it. Like, we didn't want Russell Wilson to get traded either. We wanted to see them build around Russ and do the right thing, but we were also tired of the drama. We were tired of seeing, all this news come out and just nothing happen, and just this kind of fluctuation of you're never really sure what's going on, and no one seems to be upset but too happy either. And like it's either rebuild or try to build around him. And these were the only 2 options, and they chose to try to do a rebuild. So I mean, you gotta live with it. And I'm not super upset by it. I mean, I get why some people might be upset with the trade, the compensation that we're getting. Like, I wanted the house, right? Like, I mean, no. And I think the only reason why, and I think it's like kind of what Joe said, if the Jamal Adams trade had not happened, we probably would have looked at this as a fair trade. Right?
I think it's a fair trade. I think it's a fair trade. I think if you throw in another first round pick in 2 years' time, yeah, it would be nice. I'm happy with what they've got, Robbie. Maybe it's a bit easier for someone like me to square the circle of this trade because I've spent the last month watching endless videos of players who are in this draft and have written thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of words on this draft and have said on the record numerous times, Robbie, that this is a draft that you can build a foundation around. I genuinely believe that this is a draft class that you can build a young core with at several key positions. I think it's fantastic on the defensive line. And now you have a top 10 pick. So you can get one of those fantastic defensive. They weren't going to be there at 41. Now you have a pick where you can get Jordan Davis, Jermaine Johnson, Kayvon Thibodeau. You can trade down and have Boyer Maffey if you want. You could trade down and have Devontae Wyatt. You could trade down and get the Connecticut defensive tackle who, for some reason, Travis Jones. You can get these. You can go Perion Winfrey if you want. You have got the ability now to do whatever you want to improve your defensive line. I'm sat here right now, Robbie, and I have watched the San Francisco 49ers go to 2 Super Bowls Not sorry. Close enough. 1 Super Bowl and an NFC Championship game with a great defensive line, with a fantastic defensive line. Well, guess what? The Seahawks have got a chance to build a great defensive line, either by going and getting Chandler Jones right now or Von Miller and playing them across from Darrell Taylor, but it's going to be harder to bring them here now that you've traded away a franchise quarterback. I accept that. But you could get one of those two. And then you could put Jordan Davis in the middle or Devontae Wyatt in the middle. Sounds pretty special to me, that. Or you go and get Jermaine Johnson or Kayvon Thibodeau, or you trade down for a Boya Mafia, somebody like that. Trevon Walker might even be there at 9. Who knows? You go and take one of those guys, and then you maybe go and get a great. You've got the guy from Denver, Shelby Harris, but you want to go and get a Calais Campbell and a Akeem Hicks or somebody like that. The chances of the Seahawks having an elite defensive line in 2022 and 2023, Robbie, have massively increased as a consequence of this trade. And again, I will just say it one more time. The 49ers have been to a Super Bowl and an NFC Championship game off the back of a fantastic defensive line. Imagine, I was watching Jermaine Johnson tape yesterday, Robbie. This is a guy who went to the Senior Bowl. He didn't look good at the Senior Bowl. He looked outstanding at the Senior Bowl. He dominated everything. He was the alpha male of the Senior Bowl week. And then I watched again Jermaine Johnson. I don't know why. I watched some Jermaine Johnson yesterday. Cannot explain why. Maybe it was a premonition. But then I watched the linebacker drills again, Robbie, from the combine last night. They posted the highlights, they condensed all the commercials out and basically showed everything that they showed. Jermaine Johnson was barking his way through the whole linebacker drill, shouting at people, energizing people. You watch the linebacker drills. Go and watch it. It's on YouTube, on NFL's YouTube channel. Go and watch the intensity and the passion of that group, the energy within those linebackers workouts. And you were there, Robbie, was outstanding. It was the complete opposite of the defensive back workouts, which were quiet and everybody looked like they wanted to go home because it was the last day of the combine and the coaches couldn't give a crap. It was poor. Linebackers completely different. Guess who was the alpha amongst all of those absolute dogs in the linebacker group? Jermaine Johnson. So you put Jermaine Johnson across from Darrell Taylor. I'm massively excited about that. I think that could be a partnership from which you can build a sensational future. And you've got the chance to go and get another linebacker if you move on from Bobby Wagner. You've got a chance to get a great cornerback. Hey, look, maybe they want to go for a Derek Stingley or a Sauce Gardner at number 9. They've got that choice now. They could go and get a great offensive lineman, Robbie, from number 9. You know, there are going to be offensive linemen who are available to them now. It just opens everything up to really improve your roster with good young talent. And that's how you built the core initially. It was with great young players. And I'm just talking about round 1. You've got at least 2 picks in round 2, maybe 3 if it's Denver had 2 second rounders. If the 2 second rounders are this year, you'll have 3 second round picks and a first round pick this year to spend. You can do so much damage with that. You've got a 3rd rounder. You've got a 4th rounder. You've got another 1st rounder next year. This, to me, is a good deal. And guess what? You've filled your hole at tight end because you've got Noah Fant, who was a top 20 pick. It's a fair deal. Yeah. I think it's a fair deal.
Yeah, I see there's a ton of comments right now. People are pissed and they're like, yeah, but that doesn't help. Or, you know, our rebuild doesn't help or whatever. Listen, I mean, I understand where everyone's coming from. The emotions of this are high. I understand why people are frustrated. I mean, I get it. But like you also, like kind of what Rob is saying, like understand that you know, they did build a championship team until they got Russell Wilson, kind of brought them over that edge. But we weren't winning with Russ right now anyways. I mean, I granted he was injured, but we haven't won a playoff game in what, 5 years? So I mean, at this point, it's time. Yeah, and there's someone else who just said Russell wanted out anyways. Russ didn't want to be here, so like let's take the best of it. Let's build what we can. Let's build a hell of a defense, and then you know who knows who the next quarterback is. I mean, I don't think we're going to use number 9 at Matt Corral. I've seen a couple of people say that. I don't worry about that. Like maybe they will, but maybe they will. I don't know, but you know, like you were saying, they want a game changer, someone on the defensive line. Maybe that's the route they go. But you know, at least it's exciting. We don't have to deal with the Russell Wilson drama anymore, right?
Well, this is. I mean, you've hit the nail on the head, Robbie. Sorry to jump in.
No, go for it.
There's so many. I've got so many thoughts in my head. Just spewing out, just spewing words.
Get it out.
And I'm going to write something after this as well. So get ready. So yeah, I mean, I think you've stumbled on a great point there that Russell Wilson didn't really, the connection wasn't there anymore. You know, the most important connection you have in your franchise is your head coach and your quarterback. And I think that Russell Wilson and Pete Carroll will always be friends. I think that they are in a personal level very, very close, like each other to bits, no problems there. But they were philosophically different. And Russell wanted to do one thing and Pete wanted to do another. It led to what happened last year, and that has never gone away. And what we're going to have now, look, we talked about it the other day. And look, I wouldn't rule out Matt Corral at number 9. Because if you believe, and here's the thing, Robbie, let's go back in a time machine, right? And let's tell everybody in 2012, it's a week before the NFL draft, Russell Wilson's going to be Russell Wilson, okay? Would you have taken him at number 12 overall when Seattle had the pick instead of Bruce Irvin? They traded down to 15 and took Bruce Irvin. If you knew Russell Wilson was going to be Russell Wilson, you would have took Russell Wilson at number 12. And at the time, everyone would have gone, what are they doing taking Russell Wilson at number 12? But they would have been justified. If they, you know, this is a team, they've only drafted 2 quarterbacks, one of them, you know, not in the 7th round, and it's been Russell Wilson. If they believe that Matt Corral is I'm saying it's Corral, let's say it's Willis, let's say it's Kenny Pickett, whoever, okay? Let's say that they believe that whoever their guy is can be a franchise quarterback. Then I have no issue with them taking him at number 9, even if I don't agree. If you believe someone's a franchise quarterback and can be a legend for you for the next decade, take them. And listen, I don't think they're going to take Matt Corral at number 9, but I'm just saying.
Good point. Yeah, you brought up a good point. It could be another quarterback too. It doesn't. I mean, it might not be Matt Corral. There may be another quarterback they're interested in.
And we're sitting here, and whenever we have this conversation, we had it the other day, Robbie, about Corral, and people are going, Corral sucks. He's no good. You can't do that. You can't do this. Listen, I'm sure people were saying the same things about Russell Wilson 10 years ago. That's why I ended up in the 3rd round. And by the way, some people were projecting 4th, 5th round for Russell Wilson. Matt Miller, who's now working on ESPN, said it was the worst pick in the 3rd round and possibly the entire draft, if people remember that. So people didn't think that Russell Wilson was worth taking in round 3 10 years ago. Well, guess what? He should have been the number 1 overall pick. So if we can sit here and go, Matt Corral's no good, Matt Corral this, listen, the one thing you will get from Corral, and I've studied him, Robbie, and the piece was going to be coming this week anyway. It most certainly is now. Okay, I'm probably write it tonight. I'm probably not going to sleep tonight. It's okay. I'm off tomorrow. I can recover tomorrow night when I'm back at work on Thursday. Here's what Corral is. And I've got a super chat that I want to come to after this. He isn't a big guy, admittedly. He's not Josh Allen, 6'6", 240 pounds, honking it downfield. He's not the big guy. Here's what he is. He has got a fantastic release, and he generates so much velocity on his throws, Robbie. He has got a strong arm, and John likes strong arms. And Pete Carroll likes strong arms because he likes to get the ball downfield. He is incredibly athletic. He's very good as a runner. He's not just a guy who can extend plays a bit. He is somebody who can take a read option for 30 yards, exploit a gap, scramble, extend plays, improvise. He can do all of that. And he can deliver the ball where it needs to go. Now, the problems, and I'll break this down a bit more in the piece. One, the offense is very kind for Matt Corral in that it's all set up for him. You know, he kind of knows where he's got to go before the play. It's exactly the same. That's not exactly the same. It's a very different scheme. It's the same concept, though, as the Shanahan offense. Kyle Shanahan runs his offense, Robbie, whereby he tells his quarterbacks, you read this and you react off this. So if the defender does this, you throw it here. If the defender does this, you throw it here, and you've just got to go and do it. And if you do it, we will succeed and the play will work. And it does. And that's how Kyle Shanahan's system works. It's why people were thinking that they would take the Alabama quarterback, Matt Jones, a year ago rather than Trey Lance, because Matt Jones can get the ball to where it needs to go. Okay? So that's how the Kiffin thing is. And you see it with Corral. He knows where he's going to go. He reads the defense and he throws it. And what it makes the bed for him. So he knows where he has to go. And in the NFL, it's going to be more complex than that because he's not coming to play in the Kyle Shanahan offense. It's going to be very, very difficult for him. He's going to have to make different kinds of reads. It's going to be a whole much more complex than it is playing for Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss. That's just a fact. So that's going to be a challenge for him. He's had some injuries because he's not a big guy. He had an injury in the bowl game within sort of the first 5 minutes of the game starting. He had an ankle injury. That's why he didn't do anything at the combine. So he's had some injuries. And there are some throws on tape where you go, what are you doing there? Like, for example, there was one player, I can't remember who it was against. He overthrew somebody by about 10 yards, which was an easy throw into the end zone for a touchdown. There was a throw to a sideline in another game where I just thought, I don't understand what you're seeing there, and you've thrown it way over his head. So is Matt Corral the perfect player? No. Can he, as we were saying the other day, be a second-tier level quarterback of the kind of quality of, and people hate this, Garoppolo? I think he can be Garoppolo plus. I think he could be Derek Carr. I think he could be that. If he ends up being Derek Carr in 10 years, people won't say it was a terrible pick if you take him in round 2. Just saying. One other point on Matt Corral. He's a fantastic competitor. You're not going to get any drama from him. His teammates at Ole Miss love him. They speak about him, Robbie, in a way I don't recall seeing teammates speak about a quarterback. I've not heard every set of teammates talk about every quarterback that's entered the draft. And for the last 10 years, I've not been focusing on quarterbacks. But in the documentary that I was talking to you about the other day, his teammates spoke very glowingly about him. And the one thing the Seahawks need right now is togetherness and buy-in, and someone who's going to come in and unite this locker room behind them. And I think Matt Corral can do that. Just some thoughts on Matt Corral. Just saying. Kyle sent this super chat. Do we make a run at Gardner Minshew and draft a QB on top of Drew Lock for a 3-way battle in camp? I think there will be a 3-way battle in camp, Kyle. I don't think it'll be Gardner Minshew, though. I actually stood at Gardner Minshew a few weeks ago in anticipation of potentially some kind of trade like this happening. And I watched his win all 22 on Game Pass against the New York Jets. And I have to say, Robbie, even though he played, his statistics were very good in that game, I came away kind of underwhelmed. I think physically he's nowhere near the kind of talent that will fit Seattle's preference of getting the ball downfield and driving it. I don't think he is going to be a fit personally, but I think I could imagine them bringing a Tyrique Taylor in, who is a free agent, who won't cost a lot of money, Robbie, who's been around the block, well respected within the league. I could see someone like that coming in to compete with Drew Lock. And then if the draft comes and your guy's not there, you've got 2 people in the room with NFL starting experience, and you just go with them. That's what I see. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, that's, Tyrique Taylor is one of the guys who comes up in my mind as well. There are other players that are going to be available, like Marcus Mariota. Jordan Love's going to be available. I said that earlier as well. I'm not saying that. I mean, I'm sure the Packers are going to want good high pick for him as well. But I mean, I'm guessing he's going to be on the trade block as well. There's going to be players that you can have, come in and compete for a starting role, because I definitely don't think they're handing the keys to Drew Lock for the long haul. I think this is probably just a throw in, so we have a quarterback, and then we'll see what they do. I think the draft is going to be really interesting as far as that first round and what we're going to do with that first pick. So free agency starts soon, so we might know they might bring some prior to the draft anyway. So there's going to be some players. That Tyrique Taylor definitely comes to the top of mind, though. I mean, he seems like a guy who come in and compete right away, and he's got good starting trade. If he could just stay healthy, I think he'd be a decent option. I mean, listen. I think people are also they're gonna hear these names and they're like, well, it's not Russell Wilson. It's not good. So then we're not trying to replicate Russell Wilson. I think give us a chance to at least compete a little bit in this year, but I think this year this is a rebuild. That's what it feels like. You're muted, Rob.
Sorry, Robbie. I have not got Twitter open or anything like that, so I can't see what people are saying. I'm seeing in the comment section people are saying things like there's rumors that DK and Tyler are going to be traded. Look, it remains to be seen. I would think that with DK Metcalf, you've just got to go up to him and ask him, Robbie, what do you want to do? I mean, like, how does this change your situation? Because you are in line for a contract extension. Do you want to be here or do you not want to be here? And if he says he doesn't want to be here, then you can go and trade him, because I guarantee that there's teams like the Jaguars and the Jets and others with young quarterbacks, Robbie, who New England perhaps, who would be very happy to give you even more in terms of draft stock to go and get someone like DK Metcalf. And I guess it's the same question. If you don't want to pay Russell Wilson 45 to 50 million a year, you trade him. They've done that. If you don't want to pay DK Metcalf 20 million plus a year, trade him. It's as simple as that. You've got a choice to make on how you are going to pay your players and what you're going to do. But you've also got to remember that if you're just going to keep trading away everybody who you don't want to pay, eventually you've got to pay someone. And you have paid Jamal Adams. So you can't say, well, we're not going to pay Russell Wilson and DK Metcalf, but we are going to give Jamal Adams $17.5 million a year. But maybe that was the tipping point for them. Maybe they've decided, look, we've tried to be aggressive. We had Jamal Adams. We've traded for Clowney. We've done all that. It hasn't worked. Russell's unhappy. I think you've got to bring everybody together. Pete Carroll, he has the sign on top of the door that says all in. How can you be all in if your quarterback's not all in? If your quarterback wants to go and play somewhere else? If you want people to tap that thing, remember that we all we need thing, Robbie. They need to get back to that. That's how it needs to be now. It needs to be a bunch of guys who are, just going to get a second chance. And that's what it was. The Big Reds, the Chris Clemens. They all came together around it was them and Marshawn. Marshawn is that. Marshawn came in second chance. It was sort of last chance you for all of these guys coming to Seattle. And they combined that with great young players that they drafted. They've got to do that again. And I get it. I get people being really unhappy about this, who maybe would have rather have seen the Seahawks fire Pete Carroll, rally behind Russell Wilson with a new head coach and maybe a new GM, and go in a different direction. I have sympathized with that opinion. I've suggested it myself, and you have as well, Robbie, I think, during the course of the season. But it didn't happen. And as we sit here today, I think this is decent value for the trade. Doesn't mean that I think the Seahawks are going to be in position to win a Super Bowl in the next 5 years. This might be the precursor, Robbie, to a horrible period in Seahawks history where we spend every year talking about top 10 draft picks. Won't be the worst thing for Seahawks Draft Blog, but it might not be the best thing for the Seahawks, but we might end up talking about that. Maybe we're going to be watching the superstars of college football a little closer than we have in the last decade here, Robbie. But, I want life to be interesting again. I think we said that on the last stream that we did, that we just want to be entertained. I just want to be engaged. And I'm engaged again. I'm excited. What's going to happen in free agency? Are they going to go after some big names now that they've got a bit more money to spend? Are they going to try and build up the roster? What are they going to do in the draft? What's that number 9 pick going to be? I'm going to get my mock draft up in a bit and throw you some names at you, Robbie. See if you were there at the combine, see what you kind of like the thought of. I think it is exciting. And I wish Russell Wilson the absolute best. It has been an absolute pleasure to watch him playing in Seattle. I have no ill feeling. I wish him the absolute best in Denver. And frankly, Robbie, if it can't be the Seahawks winning the Super Bowl next year, I've got no issues with Russ and Denver winning the Super Bowl. I hope he has a great time. I hope the Seahawks beat Denver every single time they play them, but I have no ill feeling towards Russell Wilson. And I'll tell you something now. If what we've seen in the back end of the 2020 season and the injury and everything, Robbie, in the 2021 season, if that continues next year, how many people are going to be sat here in a year saying that was a bad deal? None. Let's see what he does.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. And I kind of like what you're saying. Like, it makes it exciting again. It makes it exciting to see, kind of where we're going. I saw someone post just earlier, now Seattle's 4th in the NFC West. We were 4th in the NFC West last year with Russ.
Exactly.
Well, that doesn't matter. And the year prior to that, we made the playoffs. Well, yeah, cool. We won the NFC West, but we were 1 and done. The Rams came in and whooped our ass. It doesn't help us. Like, gives us an opportunity to build up the granted, I know why people are upset. Well, it's John Schneider and Pete Carroll's fault that the roster's in the position that they're at. They used the wrong resources. They messed it up, and now they have to trade Russ because of it. I get all that, but now at least it's going to be exciting. Gives us an opportunity. Chances are Pete's probably not going to be here next year anyways. Let's see what happens.
Well, who knows? Listen,
I guess I shouldn't say that. I thought he wasn't going to be here this year, so I shouldn't say that, because that's not true.
I think the funny thing is, Robbie, is that I was right before this trade happened. I put a tweet out saying, and it was getting quite a lot of traction on Twitter, the Seahawks got a decision to make. Either they have to be willing to pay Wilson $45 to $50 million a year, or they need to get on the phone right now and start talking about a trade. And that was probably literally what they were doing when I was tweeting that out. And some guy replied to me and said, well, it's not going to happen, is it, because they're not talking to teams about a trade? And I went, well, how do you know? And he sent me an article from one of the local Seattle journalists who had said, well, it's not going to happen. It's not. I was like, is that your proof? And he went, well, where's your proof? And I said, well, I don't need to provide any proof because I'm not making a claim. And he went, well, you shouldn't. This is what they're saying, and you should just get on with it. And then 2 minutes after he sent that tweet, Russell Wilson's gone to Denver. And it just goes to show, doesn't it, that, Joe was making these points. And frankly, I'm not ashamed to say that to do something a little similar here, Robbie. We've been talking about this for how long? Not because we wanted to talk about it, not because we wanted to create drama, not because we needed clicks or we needed whatever, anything like this. We talked about it because it was the subject that needed to be talked about because it was a story. And it didn't matter how many times John Clayton yelled at people on 710. And it didn't matter how many times Greg Bell went on one of his Twitter escapades, sarcastically and mockingly, getting after people because this was a non-story. It was a story. It was a story from the minute he went on that Dan Patrick show, if not before. It's been brewing for a while. They were talking to the Browns in 2018. They were talking to the Bears yesterday. They've done a deal with Denver today. And everybody moves on. And I'm excited. I am excited. I'm genuinely excited. I choose excitement. You may choose disappointment. That's your choice. And you have every right to choose disappointment. And you can tell me that I'm being ridiculously optimistic. But I'm happy to just see what happens next. And I'll judge their moves. I'm happy to take a back seat, see what the Seahawks do in free agency and the draft. And then, Robbie, you and I can have a conversation about it and we can assess what the Seahawks have done. And I'll say whether I agree with it or not. And then we'll get to see the results unfold over a 17-game season. But I don't see any point in not giving them the chance. They've made the move now. Carroll ain't going to get fired today. They're going to make the picks. I'm going to give the guys who won this team a Super Bowl a chance to make amends for the last few years because they've been crap. So that's just my choice. Big Mike's got in touch, big supporter. He says, I admire your optimism, Rob. This is one of my lowest days as a Seahawks fan, but hey, we've got the Peacock, so it's all good. Big Mike, completely respect your opinion. You are a big supporter of the channel. You have made a lot of salient points over the last few weeks, and you have every right to be incredibly disappointed today. I just happened on this occasion to feel a little bit differently. People are saying, what about Tyler Huntley and build around him? I just don't. It's a seller's market at quarterback now. The Seahawks are with the Washingtons, the New Orleans. Help me out, Robbie. Who are the other teams that need one? Those teams.
The Washington Commanders need one.
Yeah, Washington Commanders.
The Carolina Panthers need one.
The Panthers. They're one of those teams now who are suddenly in the seller's market. If you go to Baltimore and say Tyler Huntley, they'll say, well, give us one of those first-round picks you've just got. Yeah. And I don't want to spend a first-round pick on Tyler Huntley. Frankly, I'd rather just roll with Big Drew. Drew Lock. Do you want me to give you a thought on Drew Lock before we go into the mock drafts, Robbie? Because I obviously did study him a little bit in lead up to his draft.
Yeah.
He is mobile. He can scramble very well. He's surprisingly athletic. And he's got a big arm. The problem with Drew Lock was always accuracy, and that has proven he's maddeningly, frustratingly erratic, and it has been at Denver. But I don't know. When he trots out there for the first preseason game, Robbie, is either the starter or as the backup, there'll be part of me that goes, see what this is like. I didn't even stay up for the first preseason game. I didn't even realize it was on until like 3 days before because I'd lost total interest. I'll be staying up for the first preseason game this year. There's no doubt about that. You better believe that. So I'm not totally against this. And someone sent me.
We got a bunch of Niner fans in here right now.
Have we? Oh, it's cool.
Yeah,
good to see you. Yeah. Have you got over the NFC Championship? Yeah. Here's a quick thing because I was talking to a Niners fan yesterday who was saying, I made some reference about the Seahawks 90 because how does it feel to be fourth in the NFC West? And I went, well, you tell us you've done it 4 times in the last 6 years. And we won a Super Bowl in my adult life. So there we go. Rob, what gives you the optimism and confidence this regime can use this haul to rebuild given the last few years? Not sure we can time travel to 2012. We can't. If you want to know what my optimism and confidence is, I don't have... There's optimism and there's being willing to give someone the benefit of the doubt and to see what happens. And there's confidence. Am I confident they'll be able to do it? No. Am I willing to give them a chance to see if they can? Yes. Am I going to write an article today and demand that Pete Carroll be fired and John Schneider? No. Am I going to break down this deal and say why I think it's fair value and discuss what they could do with the picks and the money? Yes. Am I going to discuss the future at quarterback? Yes. I will do all those things in an article. Am I confident that they're going to get this right? Absolutely not. But we will see. And that's it. I'm willing to see, Robbie. And I think that's fair. Don't you?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, shoot, we've been bitching about their draft picks the last couple of years and upset about the Jamal Adams trade and the how much we gave up. But yeah, I think they did it once. I know we kind of talked about prior to the season we were talking about Pete needs to go. We need to it's time to move on from Pete. Time to build around Russ. I mean, we've said this, and when they made the decision that Pete was staying. I think a lot of us were like, okay, well, what does that exactly mean for Russ now? And now we have our answer. But I think, ultimately you got to give them another chance. I mean, I know they did have a rebuild, a couple of years ago, and they failed at that rebuild. Listen, they brought us a championship once. Let's give them another shot. I mean, you can be super pissed or you can be super optimistic about this. Either way,
be in the middle.
Could be in the middle. It's not going to change anything. So let's I think just try to get behind. We have some picks now that we can at least look forward to.
Here's the thing: when they reset in 2017, going into 2018, Robbie, Pete Carroll, he was in a weird place because all of a sudden they'd gone from the LOB being the foundation of the team and the defense and Marshawn, and they were transitioning to Russell Wilson being the foundation with Bobby Wagner. And the problem with that was that it clashed with, you've got sort of Wilson, who had got these grand ambitions for his own career and personal achievements and wanting to throw the ball. And we're seeing people like Patrick Mahomes coming into the league and all these quarterbacks who were throwing for thousands of yards and huge touchdowns, Robbie, and teams weren't running the ball as much and they were throwing it a lot more. And Wilson wanted to be that. And that clashed with what Pete Carroll wanted to do. So ultimately, from that situation, it was no longer really Pete Carroll's team. It was an awkward sort of marriage of convenience whereby Carroll didn't want to give up on Russell Wilson and get rid of a franchise quarterback, but at the same time he got his philosophy and Wilson had his, and he was trying to kind of meet somewhere in the middle with that, and it wasn't working for Russell Wilson, obviously. So I think that part of the issue with the reset, and look, the penny pick and LJ Collier and the way they handled the 2019 draft, the first two picks in that draft, the Jamal Adams trade, all terrible moves, but I think they were kind of fighting against the tide right from the off because Carroll wasn't building the thing from scratch like he was in 2010. My vision, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to get and when Wilson came in, he was the ultimate underdog, wasn't he? Full of grit, full of pissed off for greatness, the complete epitome of everything that Carroll wanted in a quarterback. Sure, he's been downgraded because of his height. He's always been doubted. And he comes in and he shows everybody what he can do, and he wins a Super Bowl with this great defense who are equally pissed off for greatness. And it's a raving success. The reset he never had any of that. He just had expensive players, and he was caught within this movement of throwing the ball a lot, and Wilson having his head turned that way. What this gives you now is a chance to go back to 2010. I think they're a more talented team than they were in 2010. I think that's pretty obvious because they were pretty much an expansion franchise when he took over. To go back to that and recreate a Carroll football team. And if it fails, he will be fired. And if he succeeds, he'll be a legend. So we'll see.
I mean, getting back to Pete Ball, it's one of the reasons I said it earlier before I knew what all the trade compensation was. I was like, man, I really hope Javonte Williams is part of this deal because that would have been great. But, oh well.
Yeah, I mean, that was never going to happen. Somebody sent me a message earlier saying
what I wanted.
So someone said they wanted Patrick Surtain or Javonte Williams or both and Bradley Chubb. And I was like, that's never going to happen. And when they said it was multiple players, I was like, part of me was hoping it might be Jerry Jeudy instead of Noah Fant, just because I think Judy's got a little bit more. He's a receiver, first of all. I think Fant has been. I was never a huge Noah Fant fan when he was coming through the draft. I thought obviously he's very athletic, Robbie, but I always thought the idea of Noah Fant was better than the reality of Noah Fant. I thought he was one of those players. I mean, no doubt he is a very talented player. I've got his numbers here, Robbie, from his combine, which I will read to you now. He ran a 4.50. None of the tight ends did that at this year's combine. He had a 4.22 short shuttle and a 6.81 3-cone. And it speaks to, again, what the Seahawks like. You know, we've clearly identified what they like in a tight end, and it's great agility testing. You know, anything short of a 7.10 in a 3-cone, he did a 6.81, which is remarkable. 40-inch vertical, 10.7 broad jump. The guy's 24 years old, Robbie. 24. I mean, they've drafted people who are 24 as rookies.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, the guy has got potential. I suspect there'll be some Denver fans. I mean, he's been in the league 19, 20. He's been in the league 3 years. He's got 1,900 yards and 10 touchdowns. His best season was 11 touchdowns. Oh, sorry, I'm looking at his Iowa numbers there. It would help if I was actually looking at his NFL numbers. So he's a 700-yard, 3 or 4 touchdown tight end based on his career so far. History in Seattle with tight ends suggests that unless you're Jimmy Graham with a very defined role in his final season, you are going to be probably in that ballpark as well, Robbie. But they're going to get him as a cheap, you know, he'll be cheap this year. They've got the 5th-year option if they want it. And it fills a hole for them. They don't have to sign Gerald Everett if they don't want to. They don't have to draft the tight end if they don't want to. It's a good pickup, a top 20 pick. He was a top 20 pick. And they've got him now with a defensive lineman. So I'm down. I'm happy with the trade. I'm not unhappy with this trade. We've got some super chats I want to get to, and then we'll get to this mock draft.
Quick shout out to Dalton Miles, our first Broncos fan, joined it. Hey, congratulations, Dalton. Your team is
listen,
just a lot better.
And if he drops a super chat in, I'll even give you a thought, Dalton, from a Broncos perspective on this. You know, on what to expect. You know, happy to do that, but it's going to take a super chat, I'm afraid. Blitzy the Clown has said, appreciate and agree with virtually all the positive aspects you guys raise, but it'll take a while to get over a front office that buys Jamal Adams for about the same price that they sell Russell Wilson. Let's roll. Which is, yeah, you know, that's fair. That's very fair. And R Toots says, great coverage. Shame not to get either young players, Judy Surtain and Miners, or a third first. Should they trade back from 9, given the holes? Well, actually, we've got one more super chat, and then I'll get onto that. This one from Washington Fish Quest. It says, you the man, Rob, subbed. What a time to be alive. Very much so. And Robbie, again, please don't feel that you've got to sit here and listen to me waffling on. The minute that you've had enough, just say it's fine.
I'm here for it all, man. Let's go.
As long as you're okay with that, man.
I'm good with it, dude.
I am happy to talk as long as there are people joining in and sending in the super chats and chatting away. I am happy to roll with this and to discuss this further. Right, let me get into this mock draft, because you know I might be able to share this on the screen here, Robbie, so that we can have a little look and see what Seattle's options are, not just in the first round, but where Denver were picking in the second round. And I think there's actually a really interesting point about the mock draft that I did that is relevant to the Seahawks. So let me just share the screen here so people can see this as well. It just takes a couple of seconds to do this. Okay. Might be a little harder than I thought, actually. My computer's not playing ball. Let's have a look. Can you see that?
Got it. Yeah, let's see it.
You've got it. Okay, right. There we go. So I'll scroll down. So get through my waffle first. So this is the top 10 that you are seeing here. Let me extend this so you can perhaps see it a bit closer in there. So as you can see, these are the guys I've got. Any of these guys, theoretically, Robbie, could be there. And I put Kayvon Thibodeau at number 3 to Houston because I think ultimately teams will just go, the guy's too good. Mm-hmm. We're going to take a chance on him. But he could easily fall. Now, whether he's got that sort of, you know, we've been talking about it, pissed off for greatness attitude that the Seahawks are looking for, I don't know. But if he's there at number 9, you're talking about a player. I mean, when he was coming through, people were talking about him as the next Myles Garrett, Robbie. I'd quite like to have Myles Garrett. If he can scratch it, if he could be 2/3 of what Myles Garrett is, I would take that at number 9 without a shadow of a doubt. But let's just assume that he's not there. I've got Jermaine Johnson available at number 9, and we've talked a little bit about him. I think he would be fantastic across from Darrell Taylor. You would have 2 aggressive, physical. They would be your tone setters moving forward. They would be your Marshawn and Cam. I think they'd have a legit. I'm not saying that they would be quite as effective as that, Robbie. but I think that they would have a chance to sort of set the physical tone that you are looking for in the same way. So that's that. I don't think they're going to go safety. Are we going to say that with a degree of confidence? But then you've got Jordan Davis, who I'm calling Thanos, based on the way that he worked it at the combine. You've got Derek Stingley here at number 14, who 2 years ago was seen as, you know, the next Patrick Peterson type cornerback coming out of LSU, and he is an immensely talented player. You've got David Ojabo, if you prefer him instead of Jermaine Johnson, and a lot of people like David Ojabo. He could be an option. If you wanted to, let's say that this all came true, which it won't, it's just a mock draft. If you wanted to trade down into this kind of range, Devontae Wyatt comes into play as a pass rusher. I've got Charles Cross, the left tackle from Mississippi State at number 18. A lot of people think he's a top 10 pick. You could take him at number 9 if you wanted a young left tackle. Malik Willis at number 20. Travis Jones at number 22. Boya Maffei at 23. Abraham Lucas, who I really like, at 24. You've got options there. And here's the interesting thing. So in this mock draft, Robbie, I had Denver trading up from their spot in round 2, which is, let me just have a look, pick number 40. So the Seahawks will essentially pick 40 and 41 right now. And that is, in this draft class, Robbie, that is chef's kiss. That is fantastic. 40 and 41 in this draft class. That to me is you're going to get you could easily get a first round player at number 40 in this class with the way that it is, because teams will reach for certain players and some will fall through the cracks. You're going to get a really good player at 40 and 41. Trust me on that. But I got Denver trading up back into the late first round for Matt Corral. And the reason I had them doing that is because Denver needs a quarterback. Now the Seahawks need a quarterback. Tennessee Titans don't have a second round pick because they traded it for Julio Jones. So I think they're going to be quite happy to move down and acquire extra stock, stay in third round, fourth round range, and jump from 26 to 40, possibly for a third rounder. I think they would be willing to do that to get another draft pick. And if you wanted to move up and make sure you got your quarterback, you could do it at a relatively cheap cost in this mock draft. And you could go and get Matt Corral at 26. You'd get the 5th-year option with him, which protects you a little bit more. And you don't have to take him at number 9. So that's where I'm coming from here in terms of that. I think you could get, Robbie, I'll bring us back in. I think you could get, theoretically, a really good pass rusher, cornerback, offensive lineman at number 9, or after a small trade down. And I think you could get your quarterback by trading up into the end of the first round, going and getting him there, and then you've still got another pick at 41. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's fantastic. I mean, you sold me. I mean, there's some really good players. And, we talked about this prior to this happening, during our combine draft results and talking about some of these players. And we just kept saying, man, I wish we had another second or, high, into the first or something like that. And even the idea of trading down at 9 and getting a couple more picks and getting kind of in that 15 range. And just there's so many incredible players available that we could really, really build a foundation for our team with this. I know the Wilson trade is a hard pill to swallow, and people say, yeah, but what are you going to do at quarterback? And that's all fine and well. I mean, we'll have to figure that out. But this is great. I mean, you could even, and if you're sold on Matt Corral, you could trade back up and get him. And your mock draft right now, this is impressive. This is a good draft. This is a really good draft.
This is the thing, Robbie. It is a great draft, and I've been saying this. You can build a foundation. You can build the future of your franchise in this draft. Are there the amazing quarterbacks, of a Joe Burrow quality? No, but guess what? A year ago, if you'd have said, right, the Seahawks have got the number 1 pick, and they can go and get Trevor Lawrence, Robbie, we'd have all been dancing around the room, wouldn't we? Did Trevor Lawrence look? I know he's playing for the Jaguars. Did he blow you away last year? What about the quarterback in New York who went number 2? Did he blow you away last year? Did Zach Wilson say? Did you look at Zach Wilson? I saw Zach Wilson live in London, and I thought, this isn't the guy I was expecting to see that I saw at BYU. You can you can have opinions on quarterbacks and who's a good quarterback and what's a good quarterback draft and all of this. I'm just saying, I wouldn't be surprised if, as much as I've talked down this quarterback class, Robbie, is if one of these guys ends up making a career of it. And I'm not saying that they will be, but what there isn't Pat Mahomes. What there isn't is Josh Allen. There's not these physical phenoms that are going to take the league by storm. And there's not a Lamar Jackson, I would say. But I think as Kenny Pickett got a chance of making it as a second-tier type starter, yeah. If Malik Willis plays in a Greg Roman-style offense, can he make a success of it? Yes, I think he can because of his physical qualities, his arm strength, and his legs. He's got a chance. Has Matt Corral got a chance to be Jimmy Garoppolo plus? Yes, I think so. So that's the kind of the perspective that I would have.
I would give I'd give another perspective on that as well. People are talking like prior to trading Russ, they're like, oh, we'll trade Russ to the Eagles for their 3 picks and Jalen Hurts. And Jalen Hurts will be a quarterback. Some of these quarterbacks that are in this draft are better than Jalen Hurts. I can tell you that right now. They're better than Jalen Hurts, who's playing for the Eagles. So this is, though it's not a great draft class for the quarterbacks, it's not the worst either. Like there are some players that can play. Are they going to be these Joe Burrows? No. Trevor Lawrence is probably not. Did they have the opportunity or the ability to? Maybe. And like you said, Matt Corral has that leadership quality that, the Seahawks are probably looking for. I'm just going to talk about, I just want to touch on this. EWE2K. He's pretty upset. He comes on ours quite a bit. And then I get where you're coming from, man. Like, we've seen this time and time again over the last, 3 or 4 years. And so it's been super frustrating. So I hope for all of our sakes, you're wrong, man.
Yeah. I mean, again, though, I will just offer the counter argument to that. As someone who has been incredibly critical, people have been, have hammered me, Robbie, on not just my comment section, but in various other websites for being overly negative and for complaining about Pete Carroll and John Schneider and their decision making and all of this. But I made those arguments and those complaints because I thought they were justified, because I could see the issues were building and I could see the direction the team was going. I didn't make those comments because I wanted to set out to be deliberately negative. I thought that the team was going in the wrong direction. Now, I have been as negative as anybody about the direction of this franchise. I can still sit here today and think I wanted to see the Seahawks. I asked for this. I asked for them to either commit to Russell Wilson or move on, and they have moved on. And I think they've got a good deal. And I will offer the perspective that this is the team, this is the same individuals that built the greatest team that greatest roster that this team has ever seen. And one of the greatest rosters that the NFL has ever seen, by the way. We might sort of forget about it right now because it's all kind of gone down the toilet, hasn't it? From the chance of a dynasty that would have lasted, winning multiple Super Bowls, Robbie, they won one, and it feels like a massive missed opportunity. But if you park that for 1 minute, they built one of the greatest rosters that has ever existed, that deserves to be remembered as such, even if it all went wrong in the end and collapsed. I'm not confident that they're going to do that again or get close to that. But it's worth just mentioning that this pairing of Pete Carroll and John Schneider, they built that team, not somebody else. I'll give them a chance to do it again. So that's the mock draft. I mean, just to sort of finish on the mock draft, Robbie, I mean, you look at the options that you've got here. I think a really good draft would be you either go and get Chandler Jones next week, which I'm still game for, and then you look at number 9 and say maybe you go for Jordan Davis. I still would lean towards just getting Jermaine Johnson at number 9 and doing different things in free agency. I think producing a really good offensive line for a start. The Seahawks had the most expensive offensive line in the league when they won the Super Bowl. Now that they're not paying a quarterback huge amounts of money, and they're going to have, I think Curtis said, $130 million to spend next year, Robbie. $130 million to spend next year. Let me say that again, $130 million to spend next year.
Yeah.
To build this team, to go on a splurge. Just think how exciting the next offseason is going to be with $130 million to spend, plus 2 first-round picks. It's almost as if they've punished those of us who write draft blogs for a couple of years and no first-rounders, and now they're making up for lost time. So we're going to have so much to talk about next year. So even if it doesn't happen this year, what an opportunity, Robbie. It's the same thing. Just think about it. Compare it. 2010, what did they have in 2010? No quarterback, but 2 first-round picks.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they're not got 2 first-round picks this year, considering because of Jamal Adams, but they had 2 first-round picks and no quarterback and a load of cap space. And then the following year, they were able to bring in the Zach Millers and Sidney Rice. People like that spent a bit of money, and obviously Marshawn was in by then. They had another good draft, and maybe they could do it again. Maybe they could do it again. Look, I'm prepared to sort of give them a chance to do it. And if they fail, I'll be the first one to say they've failed. If they succeed, I'll be absolutely delighted. So I would go Jermaine Johnson, pass rusher, build up the O-line, Robbie, see if you can get a third receiver in free agency, which we've already heard they've been dabbling around looking for that. I would bring back Quandre Diggs and Dwayne Brown and DJ Reed if you can. I'd be looking at Stephon Gilmore to see if you can if you want to play press man cover corner, bring him in across from DJ Reed. I'd be down with that. They're not going to do all of those moves. The Seahawks are not going to be a great draw right now for free agents. They're going to have to overpay to bring people in here now because Russell Wilson is gone. But if they could get 1, 2 of those guys on the outside, I think it would be. And I'd be happy to pay a little bit for that because, as I've just mentioned, they have $130 million to spend next year, so you can use some of that if you need to. So I would go and get Jermaine Johnson.
And if they cut Bobby Wagner this year, they'll have $52 million to spend. Curtis said that as well. They'll have $52 million to spend this year.
Reflect the Sun says 130 million cap room, a few less zeros here, but shilling nonetheless. Really appreciate that. Although it would have been great if you did produce a $130 million super chat. And if anybody wants to do that, then it will be much appreciated. Thank you for that, Reflect the Sun. Please keep those coming in. Right, back to the mock draft. So I would still go with Jermaine Johnson, pair him with Darrell Taylor. If they can get Matt Corral without trading up, and if they really believe in him, Robbie, I'm going to do my article, then go for it. I'm happy with that. And then with your second pick, I've got them taking a center here, but maybe you can bring in a free agent center now. I don't know,
man. I really like this I really like the centers in this draft. Cole Strange and Cam Jurgensen, those guys. I really like them. So I wouldn't be mad about grabbing one of those 2 guys.
Anyway, if you want to check out the mock draft, because I'm just sort of scrolling down it now, as you can see. And wow, there are so many players that I like in this draft. Just sort of looking, my eyes light up, Robbie, at the thought of who they could get. In this second round here. Just looking at this, you've got Leo Chenal there. I thought Christian Harris looked great at the combine, which has made me sort of rethink my thoughts on him. Kenneth Walker just looked like a dude at running back. Cam Jurgens, who you just mentioned. Alec Pierce is a really dynamic, explosive, fast, red line winning receiver. Zamir White, and as I said here, I love Zamir White. I think he could be a franchise running back. I think he's exactly the type of running back that you can build a foundation around. I would love to get Zamir White. If he was there in round 3, Robbie, I would be running to the podium for Zamir White. And just the thought that the Seahawks can get a load of these guys now and take this franchise in a different direction, I am happy with that. And you know what? They haven't got Russell Wilson anymore, and we can all be sad and disappointed about that. But you know what? Times change. Nothing lasts forever. Marshawn's gone. Richard's gone. Cam's gone. Bobby might be gone. Earl's gone. I'm excited, man. I am excited. I'm excited about. Not excited about all the articles I'm going to have to write this week. But then I kind of am because I enjoy writing. So I'm excited. Let me just sort of share this again, though, because people may be wondering, what are the Seahawks going to do? What are they going to do, Robbie? And I want to share this. And this has new context now, doesn't it? And I put this photo up. Can you see it there? I need to scroll down a little bit here.
Scroll down a little bit. Yeah, I can see it.
Quick reminder is the word there. There we go. That is Pete Carroll, Lane Kiffin to his left, Monte Kiffin, and Matt Corral. And we said this, Robbie, when we spoke a couple of days ago, that this doesn't look like, it just looked like a significant picture, because you can often sort of look at something like this and go, 2 + 2 = 5. It's just a coincidence that I don't know, Matt Carroll was Monte Kiffin and he happened to walk past while his son was sat next to Pete Carroll. It could easily be that. But look at the way that Matt Corral's looking at Pete. and Pete's looking at Matt Corral. And they kind of, it's just something there. And the fact that Matt Corral's mum liked the tweet that I sent about this. It's just, do they know something that we don't know? To me, it just feels like this is going to happen, Robbie. This is the guy. This is the guy, that Pete knows Lane and Monty, and they've given Pete all of the information that they're going to need on this guy. He's the ultimate competitor, I mentioned. He's from California, like Pete. Didn't you go to the high school that Pete's got like the big connection with? What is it, Oaks or something? People were telling me the other day.
Yeah.
Was it you who told me that, or was it somebody else?
No, it was somebody else. But yeah, no, Oaks is the one that they're referring to.
And he went there, and yeah, and just the way they're looking at each other. And Lance Zierlein put this tweet out, and he just put it out randomly, and was like, it's just Pete Carroll and Matt Corral and the Kiffins together there. And I sort of quote tweeted it and put, well, based on Charlie Campbell's report that the Seahawks like Matt Corral, this is quite an interesting picture. And Lance didn't say, you're reading too much into it. They were just kind of like walking past. He didn't say any of that, which he would have done. If I was reading too much into that, Lance would have replied and gone, listen, don't pay too much attention to this. It's just a picture, But he didn't do that. And then I retweeted this picture today, or I tweeted it again saying, quick reminder of this. Lance retweeted that picture. He retweeted the tweet. So I don't know, Robbie. I mean, maybe in a roundabout way, he's telling us, yeah, do you know what? There's something in this, that this is going down, that Matt Corral is going to be the next Seahawks quarterback. And then the question becomes, as we were mentioning what feels like a long time ago now, Robbie, if he is the guy, how high do you take him? Do you take him at 9, or do you hedge your bets?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they play that out. And there's a lot of cards to be played here. I mean, you could trade down maybe a little bit too and get him. You know how John likes to trade down. But as you were saying, if he's your guy, do you wait or just get him?
And also, we don't know what's going to happen next. I mean, you were saying there's something about Tyler Lockett. I'm trying to have a look on Twitter now to see if I can find these reports and to see if I can.
I found the one on Tyler Lockett. I saw somebody say something about DK's also on that block, but I didn't see that one.
Daniel Jeremiah said that teams should be calling about DK Metcalf right now. But he's not reporting that he's available. He just tweeted, "I'd call and ask about DK Metcalf. Worth a shot." I mean, people need to remember what with DK Metcalf right now, because I'm seeing people going, DK Metcalf's going to be really frustrated by this and he's going to want out. DK Metcalf during the Washington football team game last season, Robbie, was on the sideline pointing at Geno Smith saying, this is the guy, well, that's what he was implying when he was doing that, when Russell Wilson couldn't get a first down. They're saying, get this guy in the game. That's what he was saying. Now, whether or not that was just a bit of frustration and angst being expressed in a poor way by DK Metcalf, I'm not sure, Robbie. But that's what he was doing. So maybe DK Metcalf isn't that bothered about this news. Maybe if you bring Ole Miss's Matt Corral in, given that DK Metcalf went to Ole Miss and may well know Matt Corral and may well like Matt Corral, there may have been some crossover there. And if DK Metcalf has gone back to Ole Miss, which I'm guessing he has done in the last 2 years, Robbie, he'll have been around the guys and he will know what they think about him at Ole Miss. He may be quite excited about this, for all I know. He also might be thinking, more money for me. More free money. There's more money available now for them to pay me this offseason, which is typically what the Seahawks do a year before the end of their contracts. So it might be that this summer DK Metcalf gets a nice big fat contract extension and he might be really happy with that. And bear in mind, DK Metcalf hasn't said anything about leaving, has he? He hasn't speculated about leaving. When he was asked about his future, he says, why would I want to play anywhere else? That's what he said. And he has been critical of Wilson. I think I'm right in saying he's been critical of Wilson at times, slyly, but not outwardly, but sort of he's hinted at some frustration. He's
definitely been frustrated with, there's no secret about that. He's been frustrated with Russell on the side. You've seen it time and time again. I mean, and we chalked it up just to that, Devo wide receiver mentality, but could be something that, it's legit. He just really was frustrated with Russell. And rightfully so. There were many times that we've also talked about how, there was times Russ just missed it, but that's all quarterbacks. I'm not going to just pin that on Russ.
So I'm having a look here. Evan Massey is the guy that you mentioned about Tyler Lockett. I mean, I've never come across this guy. His bio says that he's featured on Forbes, ESPN, Yahoo, Fox, Sports Illustrated, Bleacher Report, and that he is currently an insider for Hoop Analysis Net and NFL Analysis Net. I mean, I'm not going to cast aspersions at Evan Massey, but typically you don't put everybody you've worked for before the people you work for, unless they're not particularly exciting. And he's got 20,000 followers, but he's followed by 7,000 people, which is always if you are followed by thousands and thousands, if you are following thousands and thousands of people, it does undermine somewhat the amount of followers that you have. I do not. If he says, per source, following the Seahawks trading Russell Wilson to the Broncos, they are also open for business on receiver Tyler Lockett. I am calling utter BS on that. I think that is a bullshit, because it really just is. Because how many times has Pete Carroll said Tyler Lockett is the definition of a Seattle Seahawk that we want? They love Tyler Lockett. They have just paid Tyler Lockett. As Curtis was saying, it will cost them $18 million for him to play somewhere else. It's like, well, we'll trade him to New England. Go and play for the Patriots. And don't worry, Bill, we'll stomach the cost. We'll pay for him. We will pay a top 10 receiver salary for someone to play for you, Bill Belichick. That is not going to happen. Now, whether they may well decide they don't want to pay DK Metcalf and trade him, Robbie, and then they get even more first-round picks. And as I mentioned, if I was the Jaguars and the Jets, I'd be open to trading for DK Metcalf. If the Jets wanted to give us one of their 2 top 10 picks and a pick next year, then, and because they decided they didn't want to pay DK Metcalf, that seems like a fair trade. That could be done very, very easily. We'll see. But I get the feeling that what's going to happen here is they're going to pay DK Metcalf. They're going to keep Tyler Lockett. They'll add another receiver in the next couple of weeks, I think, a second-tier type receiver. And they've got Noah Fant. They'll have a lot of weapons. They'll bring back Rashad Penny. And I think they will bolster their offensive line by bringing back Dwayne Brown and then making a decision at center and right tackle. And then I think it's all about going and getting a quarterback. I don't think they're going to trade either of their receivers. Mike has got in touch. Mike, always a big supporter of the podcast. Mike, thank you. Rebuilding is fun. It is fun. It is fun. It is fun, isn't it, Robbie? Let's be fair. It is fun to rebuild. It's exciting but fraught with danger.
Mm-hmm.
And this one from Matthew says, appreciate your coverage, Rob. If you're finding yourself optimistic, I'm feeling the same. Cheers. Matthew, I'm on an extreme diet at the moment and not drinking till June, but I will toast you a glass of fresh air. Thank you. That is Matthew there. If you want to send super chats in, keep them coming. We will jump straight to them. Graham says, discuss Bryce Young versus CJ Stroud instead, please. Okay, I know we've not been answering. I'm guessing there's been so many comments that obviously we can't. People may have demanded other questions that we've not come to, but that one just caught my eye. So I will offer a quick thought, Robbie, on this. I think that Bryce Young has got some potential. I don't think he is as good as some people in the media think. I think that he has a lot to prove. I think that next year he has to take significant steps forward. He has the physical talent to be very, very good, but I would pump the brakes on him being seen as a top NFL draft prospect. I think he has to prove that next year. I am not a believer of CJ Stroud. I think CJ Stroud is going to be the next big disappointment out of Ohio State. So I think Bryce Young has got talent. I think CJ Stroud is a mirage. I think that the player, Graham, that you need to get onto YouTube right now. Well, not right now. You need to finish listening to us. Then you need to go onto YouTube and find is Will Levis. Will Levis. That's Levis. Will Levis. Like Levi's, but not a pair of jeans. He's a quarterback. Will Levis. He is a very interesting quarterback prospect from Kentucky. And he is the guy for me that you need to go and take a look at, because he's going to be, I think he could be the number 1 overall pick next year. And no one's talking about him. Everyone's talking about Bryce Young versus CJ Stroud. No one talks about Will Levis, but go and have a look at Will Levis. He is the dude for me. Curtis makes a good point here, Robbie. Adam Schefter broke the Russell Wilson trade. He deserved it after walking Mark Rodgers' dog around the block last year. Do you know, I know it sounds, I was just thinking, Robbie, today, and I was going to mention this at some point, either with you on one of these or on the blog. Schefter's been very quiet.
He has been.
He has been very quiet for that. I was thinking, I've barely heard a peep from him over the combine. And while Jeremy Fowler's been talking a lot about the Wilson situation, and Mike Florio has, and other people have, Schefter never mentioned Wilson. He never talked about Wilson, at least that I didn't see. And I thought, if something happens, he's going to break it because he did Mark Rodgers a little favor.
A little solid, yeah.
He did him a solid. He walked Rodgers' dog around the block last year, and there we go. He didn't have to say anything. As soon as it happened, boom, he was the one who got that is how the sausage is made in this industry. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. It is what it is. There's no point complaining about it. There's a lot of that goes on. I can't say that I dabble in it much myself for the BBC, because we have kind of different rules in the way that we operate. But there are definitely plenty of journalists over here that do exactly the same thing. Keep your super chats coming. We will stay on for a little bit longer. I'm torturing Robbie by keeping.
No, you're not torturing. I'm staying on my own accord here. But listen, I just did a quick. I was searching Twitter just to try to find something on the DK, and the only thing I could find is the Jets Press, which is their just a fan site or whatever, but they're saying that people need to remember that 10th overall pick in this draft class isn't as valuable as it would have been in another draft class. Not a super top heavy class. If you're going to find a better player than DK Metcalf at 10, you're not going to trade for players who can help win now. So they're all in, and they say here that if the Jets want Metcalf and he's available, quote unquote, absolutely make it happen. But they don't show where they got that he is available at.
So
no, that's the only thing I can find on DK. Sorry, I've been looking. I can't find it. I don't think it's happening. But
let me ask you a question then, Robbie, because with DK Metcalf, it's very hard to find players with his talent and his physical brilliance. It's very difficult to find those kind of players. And if you trade him away, the chances of getting somebody of equivalent physical, brilliant level, potential upside is next to none. So, the Seahawks should not get into a habit of trading players away like that. They just shouldn't. You do it if you believe, okay, he's very, very good, but what we've seen is his limitation, that he's never going to be Julio Jones. He's never going to be the kind of guy that you throw it up to 50-52 and he comes down with it. Can you remember whenever Seahawks played Mike Evans at Tampa Bay? Whenever the Seahawks play Mike Evans, it's as if no one can cover him. They just sort of throw the ball in his general direction and somehow he comes down with it every single time. It doesn't matter what the coverage is like. He will either get open or he will body somebody, Robbie, and he gets the football. And Mike Evans does it time and time again whenever he plays Seattle. He's played him, I think, 3 times, and he's done it 3 times when he's played. DK Metcalf doesn't do that, does he? He doesn't. You never get the sense that he's going to be unstoppable in the way that a Julio, that a Mike Evans has shown they can be. Now, he can be absolutely sensationally brilliant. He can be a game changer. He can be a guy who can run 80 yards for a touchdown, as he did in the season against New Orleans. He can be a guy that you can feed the ball to, and he's a mismatch. He's somebody that a defense has to account for every single week, and you need those types of players. But if you have decided that his level is where it is now, and it's never going to go beyond that, then you have to think, is it worth paying him? Because look, Devontae Adams is going to sign a new contract now. He's going to play on the franchise tag and eventually going to sign a new contract. It's going to reset the receiver market. And DK Metcalf is not going to be saying, well, I'm not Devontae Adams, so I don't want that money. He's going to be going, no, I'm X years younger. My stats are comparable to Devontae Adams when he entered the league, maybe even better. I want to be paid Devontae Adams amount. And if you decide that you're not going to do that, it's the exact same situation with Wilson. You go and trade him. Now, that Jets fan site there, whatever you were saying, Robbie, are saying it's not as valuable to pick number 10 than it would be in other drafts. I would disagree with that. If you were after a quarterback at number 10, then I would agree. But the one thing about this draft is as I've just shown with the mock draft there, let's say that the Seahawks don't want to pay DK Metcalf $25 million a year, and they decide to trade him and get number 10 and a pick next year, let's say. Is Jordan Davis not a similarly insane physical phenom? Or a Derek Stingley? You know, because the Seahawks are trying to build a roster here, Robbie. They're embracing a reset, a rebuild, a retool, whatever word that begins with "re" that Carroll wants to choose when he eventually speaks next time. Hopefully, I would imagine that the Seahawks should do a press conference, by the way, this week off the back of this. I don't think they will because the Seahawks don't talk, but I think they should. But do you see what I mean? Is that you can get a very talented player in this draft in that range. I mean, let's say the Seahawks had 9 and 10. You could get a great pass rusher, edge, in a Jermaine Johnson or a Thibodeau, and then a Jordan Davis inside. Or a Trevon Walker, if he's there. I mean, I think I mocked today that Trevon Walker could probably go in top 5. There's a lot of buzz about that. I think the way that he tested, he probably will. Do you see what I mean, though? You can get a really talented physical player in that range, and you get him at a cheap cost for 4 years and a 5th-year option, as opposed to spending $25 million. These are the kind of things you have to consider. So I don't agree with that Jets tweet that the 10 pick is less valuable this year. I think to a team that isn't expecting to draft a quarterback at number 10, it's actually a really fantastic draft to have number 10. And if you don't want to spend number 10, you can trade down and get maybe a 3rd-round pick in a draft where 3rd-round picks are going to have 2nd-round value, Robbie. Any thoughts?
Yeah. A lot of I'm all over here just searching too. Man, if the Seahawks are really serious about an actual rebuild, I don't understand I see a lot of people saying there's a lot of more rumors about Tyler Lockett as well, which doesn't make sense with the $18 million cap hit. If we were to do that, DK makes a little more sense. I think he's going to he's a higher value. You're going to get that if you can get that 10th round pick back from the Jets for the Jamal Adams trade, and maybe something else. I think you're right. There are a lot of opportunities to help build the roster even more, and this is what we're looking at. So if it's a true rebuild, then that's something you should definitely consider.
We're going to be joined by another guest in a moment. Jeff Simmons is going to jump on and have a conversation with us. We were joined by, if you missed it earlier, because we've been going now for an hour and 40 minutes and trying to dissect everything that's going on here. And a reminder that as soon as we're done with this, I'm going to stick an article on the blog and offer some more considered thoughts on there. But if you missed it, at the very start of this stream, we were joined by Joe Fann, who gave us his views on this trade. Jeff will jump on here and give us a different perspective as well. And then I think we'll probably wrap up with some final thoughts, Robbie, on what has been a momentous day. I think the biggest day for the Seattle Seahawks, undoubtedly since the Super Bowl, since the last Super Bowl. And, I think that it's a reminder as well, isn't it, that things don't go according to plan sometimes. And when that pass was intercepted on the 1 yard line, you immediately think things, ideally you win that Super Bowl, you win back-to-back Super Bowls, you're ingrained in history forever, you maybe win another Super Bowl. History changes, doesn't it, Robbie? But life's not like that. We're seeing that around the world, that things don't happen how you want them to happen. And this is an example of something that I think if you'd have said to Seahawks fans after that Super Bowl win, they'll never win another Super Bowl and Russell Wilson will eventually be traded to the Denver Broncos, you'd be like, what? But it's happened. Zorn76 has chucked in a very generous $50 super chat. This trade needed to happen. I think what will be equally interesting is after Pete and John are gone in 2023. Well, we'll see. They've got a chance to. I mean, they have shown. People used to call him Big Balls Pete, and well, the big balls are back, aren't they? Let's be fair. I mean, this is a
bold move. Bold move. Yeah.
Can I just say though, congratulations to Pete Carroll for being prepared to actually make the bold move, Robbie. Because my fear was that he was status quo. Run it back was the phrase, wasn't it? Run it back. I'm not going to get the media was saying run it back. This trade's never going to
We're
happen.
close, yeah.
They just need a few tweaks and that. And
nobody wants to play us right now.
You know, Pete is, in fact, he's gone way beyond what I thought he was going to be prepared to go and do by making this trade. Let's bring in Jeff Simmons, who is going to join us here and give his perspective on everything that's going on. Jeff, it's great to speak to you again. Give us a thought then, Jeff. What do you think? What's your reaction to this news today? Can you hear us? Don't think you can hear us. We'll come back to Jeff in a couple of moments. Jeff, you might want to sort of go out and come back in again, maybe, because I think you've got an issue with your sound, and I don't know how to fix it. So unless you can hear me, I'll remove me. Let's give it another try. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you now.
Perfect, Jeff. Right. Give us some perspective. What do you make of this huge news about Russell Wilson?
I'm floored. Rob, we've been talking for months now about this. And I thought, and I know we've been talking about it, I thought that all signs pointed to a trade next offseason. I thought that the quarterback class next year, I thought with Rodgers' contract today, I thought it all made sense. Let him, and sort of the moves they made on defense, it all sort of set up for a last stand for Russell, kind of be aggressive in free agency. And a lot of the reports that came out, Rob, you were one of the few who just kept saying signs are not pointing in a logical direction for Seattle. And I thought it all made sense for one more year. But the trade return, I thought, was a little light. I think it's okay. I would have thought 3 first-round picks would be the starting point. I don't understand why Shelby Harris is included. Why do you want a 30-year-old offensive lineman? So now I'm kind of confused. Are they rebuilding? Are they tanking for next year? Next year's draft class is supposed to be pretty good at quarterback, but not great. Are they trying to build up the team now? Or maybe they didn't know. Maybe they knew ahead of time they couldn't get a Chandler Jones. They couldn't get a Von Miller. They weren't going to go there if Russell was unsure. So maybe you go out and say, this is how we get this pass rusher, 9th overall. Or maybe they like Malik Willis. Or Rob, you were the one who pointed out that Matt Corral report. It's hard not to think about that. Maybe you pair Drew Lock and Matt Corral, and that sort of gives you a we'll see window and try to build up the rest of the team. But big picture, I thought the return was a little light. I thought they should have either got a better player or an extra first-round pick back. No offense, a nice pickup. The 2 firsts and the second, they are decent, but I think it's a tiny bit short given that I thought it was a real seller's market in Denver. If they don't get Russell, they're shit out of luck this year. So, okay trade. I thought it would be a little better.
I just wonder, I've got the super chat here. I'll come to this first, and then I've got a point to make. I'd love your reaction to, Jeff. This from Sheldon. Thanks for all the entertainment. I'm excited for the potential of something different. I had no interest in ever watching the 2021 Seahawks defense ever again. It was soul-destroying. Yes, Sheldon, thank you for your very generous 20 Canadian dollars there, and I would agree with that. I suppose, Jeff, what I would say is what if Wilson said to the Seahawks, I am not going to Washington? And what if the Seahawks decided, actually, we don't want to trade Wilson to an NFC team? And a combination of those things narrowed the market. And what could or should have been a fantastic seller's market ended up being, it's the Broncos or more of the same. And we're going to take the Broncos deal and we're going to get what we can out of this. And this is what they got out of it. Could that potentially be how this has come down?
100%. I saw Albert Breer report already that Washington did offer 3 first-round picks, and Seattle was motivated to move him out of the NFC, which maybe that's a Russell thing. Maybe he didn't want to go to the East Coast like he said on that show. But if that's the case, that seems really short-sighted to me if they were so focused on just getting him out of the NFC that they were only left with Denver. Because I would have thought that maybe you can end up with a Javonte Williams. They have a running back hole. Maybe Patrick Surtain or Jerry Jeudy or KJ Hamler. Something like that, where you can get another player. No offense, a pretty good player. That's a good pickup for them. But it does seem like they were just left. And I think Russell wanted to go to Denver. I think he dictated a lot. And I just think, Rob, from the way things have gone, I think John Schneider was ready to move on. And I think internally there's concerns that Russell has peaked. And I think they think this was a good time to sell him. And they were probably left with one team, which didn't give them a lot of bargaining power, it seems, in the end. Because I would have thought, with Rodgers off the market and Denver basically desperate, they could have really done well. But return is not terrible, but I'm not super excited about it.
I mean, what people have to remember is, as much as there was rumor and speculation about Russell Wilson wanting to move on, there was the occasional report from people, and David Carr has been saying this on ESPN for a couple of weeks now, and other people have been saying perhaps the Seahawks, what was it? I think it was an ESPN article from Jeremy Fowler that quoted an AFC executive who said, the Seahawks are not quite as keen on Russell Wilson as maybe you think, that maybe they're more inclined to move on as much as Russell is inclined to move on. And I think that they've just decided ultimately, and we talked about this at the start, Robbie, with Joe Fann, is that they've been very mature about it actually and sat down and said, are we prepared to pay Russell Wilson the kind of money that Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen and Aaron Rodgers have signed, and presumably Lamar Jackson will eventually sign, and other quarterback Kyler Murray will presumably sign, and they've said, no, we're not. And the minute that you come to that conclusion, you start picking up the phone and talking trade, and that's what's happened. And it seems to me a little bit like Denver were ready to go, that maybe at the Combine, Schneider and the Denver GM had some kind of tentative agreement here that they were going to wait and see what happened with Aaron Rodgers. And then once Rodgers had made his decision, they were ready to go. And it seems that because it was so quick, wasn't it? After there was no rumor and speculation. Even yesterday, Jeremy Fowler was going, the Seahawks are not inclined to move Wilson, and Wilson's not inclined to do this and all that. They were talking about that on ESPN, and that's what the message was. And Greg Bell wrote an article like 2 days ago or yesterday saying, can we just forget about this and move on now, please? Because it's a non-story. And no doubt John Clayton was on the radio yesterday saying it's a non-story again, because he's been saying that for a year. And yet here we are, and it just happened like that. There was just nothing. I was sat in the kitchen, I'm looking at my phone, and I saw breaking news, and I thought that's a Seahawks jersey, and it was Russell Wilson, and it was just wow, floored by the news. Jeff, you will not have heard what we've been talking about. I'm comfortable with the trade compensation. I think that based on what we've just said about the market actually that Seattle were dealing with, which might have been get the best deal from Denver and move on, not being willing to pay Russell Wilson, I'm comfortable with it. I think that you get a chance now. I think maybe you're right. Maybe they've done the phones and thought Chandler Jones ain't going to come here. Von Miller wants to go back to Denver. I think that's probably increasingly likely now they've signed Russell Wilson. You could see that, couldn't you? Von Miller going back to Denver to try and go and get one last Super Bowl with his old team. You could imagine that happening now. So if you're not going to get a pass rusher, the game record that you're looking for, you now get the number 9 pick. And that I did my mock today. I had Denver with Jermaine Johnson at number 9. I think he's perfect to complement Darrell Taylor. The perfect pass rusher. He's got 34-inch arms. He's quick. He was the alpha male at the Senior Bowl and at the Combine amongst the linebacker drills. He is perfect to go and play across from Darrell Taylor. You bring those two in, you've got your game rank. You've got Darrell Taylor and Jermaine Johnson, Jeff, for the next 4 years.
Yeah.
That's a kind of pass rush that we look at San Francisco and the Rams and we think, well, where's our version of that? That could be it. And look, I read a mock draft today. I think it was either Lance Zierlein or Dane Brugler who had Kayvon Thibodeau at number 9. So, if you could get either of those two, you've got a game wrecker across from Darrell Taylor. That's exciting. You've got another second-round pick. You've got 40 and 41 in a draft that is loaded in the second and third round. You could keep those picks and get potentially a player you've got graded in round 1 in that range. If you want to trade up and get something at the back of the first round, you've got the ammunition to do that now. If you want to trade back, maybe get another third or another fourth, you can do that. I think you can build. I've said this a few times on the blog and on streams that we were doing, Robbie. This is a draft where you can build a foundation of a team for the future. The Seahawks have that opportunity now. Yes, they've got to go and get a quarterback, the hardest thing. But there is an opportunity to go and build with the stock that they've got. And for me, Jeff, that is exciting.
Yeah, I can hear the enthusiasm from you again, which is kind of nice because the way Seahawks conversation has gone the last few years, it's just been no direction, no point. And you're right. This is a massive draft for the Seahawks now because the first round picks next year from Denver probably isn't going to be very good. It's probably going to be in the 20s. And they have 3 picks in the top 41 when yesterday they had one pick in the top 41. And they're in the sweet spot right there. And I was talking to an agent last night, actually, kind of talking about Chandler Jones. And he brought up an interesting point, which is why I was actually thinking about this morning, that they might do a trade. And he was saying that I know I'd mentioned when I heard that the Seahawks were sort of waiting. I mean, the Russell Wilson camp was waiting on the Seahawks. So they're waiting to see if the Seahawks are going to splash in free agency. But say you're Chandler Jones. It's funny that Russell's created a situation, though, where if you're Chandler Jones, you don't know if Russell's going to be there beyond next year. So you're not going to sign with Seattle. So Russell had been waiting to see if the Seahawks were going to do something. But at the same time, he created a situation where people probably weren't going to go there because of him. So it does make sense that they came to this conclusion. And now the draft completely changes their outlook now. They have to nail this draft. This is the most important draft of Pete Carroll and John Schneider, especially John Schneider's legacy. Because if they screw this thing up, their fate in the fan base is not very good right now. A lot of fans have lost trust in them. Their drafting's been relatively bad. Their free agency's been worse. If they screw this thing up, then all the goodwill they've created in that first Super Bowl will be gone. They'll be the guys who screwed up the Russell Wilson trade on top of all the years of wasting Russell Wilson. So this draft is now so important. And you nailed it. 9th pick, that is prime spot for a pass rusher. I think they had to be looking at the market and saying, how do we get this pass rusher? That 9th pick is the second round. You got to think of that. Is Matt Corral going to be picked there? If not, you got a lot of ways. Right tackle, left tackle. You have ways to really build a better team up. 3 picks in the top 41 is a big difference. They now have very good draft capital. They move down, they can get another 3rd, another 4th. They could be loaded in this draft. So this draft, cannot be, because next year they're not going to have the kind of, they might not have a top 10 pick unless they just stink this year, which is possible if Drew Lock's the quarterback. But man, they have a real good opportunity here. They cannot screw this up.
Robert, do you want to come in? I've got a couple of things I want to say, but do you want to jump in?
I think that's Jeff. I think exactly what you said. They have to nail this draft. They have to. It makes you're right. It'd be the worst thing to screw up this draft and trade your franchise quarterback and not get it right. So this is a very, very important year for them in the draft. They got to nail it. And
the other thing, Jeff, is, I mean, we've had these conversations when we've had streams in the past. I don't want to speak for you, so I want to give you a chance to sort of answer this in your own words. For me, I just wanted to see something different. I wanted to see aggressive, all-in, Rams style, cards on the table, go for it with Russell Wilson, or I wanted to see a rebuild, a reset, a retool, again, whatever word that Carroll will use to describe whatever this is. I wanted to see that. And we've got that. And I'm happy with that. I will go into free agency now thinking, I'm interested to see what happens. And if they don't, if it pops up that Chandler Jones is signed somewhere else, I'm not going to think, I'm going to be okay because they've got the number 9 pick. There's going to be a pass rusher there for them one way or another. There's going to be somebody there. They can, whether it's Trevon Walker, whether it is Jermaine Johnson, whether it is Thibodeau, whether they trade down a bit for Boya Mafe, there's going to be somebody there that they can take to play across from Darrell Taylor. So, and I'm happy with that. And look, it's been 10 years since I used to spend every night digging through quarterback tape, trying to find whoever the franchise quarterback was going to be for Pete Carroll. Part of me is kind of excited to do it again, just to go through it and really get into. I've spent a couple of days watching Matt Corral because of all that stuff, and I thought, well, the hell, I'll throw an article out there this week about it. I'm glad I've done that now. I've kind of got some money in the bank with that, but I look forward to watching the rest of them and trying to think, who are they going to get? I'm intrigued to see what happens with this, but that's it, Jeff. It feels fresh and new, and we'll be watching a team in week 1 of even the preseason. I'm going to be really interested to see what it looks like. And that week 1, all I can think of right now is I can't wait to get back to Seattle next year, regardless of how the team performs. It's fresh, it's new. I'll be going over there with a sense of excitement again, and I'll take that right now. I'll take it.
It's a great point because it's always become stressful to follow them. Where you're right, if they kept Russell and say you see Chandler Jones signs with the Chargers, you're sitting there just devastated. They're wasting this. They're going nowhere. They're purposeless. What's the point of this whole thing? Nothing brings new energy like a new direction. Honestly, it might have been better if they had a new coach and a new general manager to be pulling this off. That might have been even more exciting. But man, this now. There's so many machinations from this that I'm just so curious. What happens with Diggs now? What happens with Dwayne Brown, Bobby Wagner, even to extent Jamal Adams? Jamal has not been done well handling losing teams, and that trade just looks so stupid right now. We've talked about that too many times. But yeah, man, there's so much this draft just changes the whole energy of the offseason. And now just the whole feeling of the offseason is different. It's not, if they don't sign Quandre Diggs, we're sitting there scratching our heads and stressed out of our minds. If Dwayne Brown leaves, now they have a chance to build something. That looks different. I have no idea what they're going to do at quarterback. I can't imagine that Drew Lock is anything other than a flyer. He's on the last year of his deal. He's a high upside guy that's been very disappointing in his career. I hope they don't think much of him. I think he's a stopgap. The one thing that worries me is Malik Willis. I can see these guys getting excited about him. That would scare me a little bit. But man, yeah, I'm with you, Rob. They need to change how they've been doing things. They need to address this offseason a little differently. They now have more cap room. I would hope they create more cap room with Bobby Wagner. They have a chance to have their most well-rounded team in years. They're not going to sign Gerald Everett now that they have Noah Fant. There's no point having both those guys. I think DK Metcalf is a little excited right now. I don't think he'll ever admit that. But him and Russell were eye to eye last year. They have a really chance to create a well-rounded roster for the first time in years. And I'm very curious what they do with it, because I think the other way, we ultimately would have ended up just very frustrated and very disappointed, because if they don't get Von Miller or Chandler Jones, it's looking like every other offseason the last 3 years where we're scratching our head. What the hell are they doing with this pass rush group? What the hell are they doing with this offensive line? Now they have a chance to build a roster in the trenches. I would consider trading some guys. Like, what do you do? Like, they can't trade Jamal because his contract's probably too bad, but they should probably try to get rid of him. But man, the rest of their team, there's a lot of chances to rebuild this thing. They need to have a good offseason. They got cap room. Next year, they're going to have a ton of cap room. $40 million comes off next year.
$130 million.
Yeah.
Wow.
And you think what? They cut Bobby now?
I think they have to.
I don't like. What is that? What it is? I'm so curious what his tweet meant about Sherm being a prophet. I didn't know what that meant.
I saw that. I was wondering the same. I mean, unless he's referring to Wilson being.
I don't know if he said something about a trade. I don't know if it's a shot at Russell or maybe
I don't think Sherman said anything about Wilson being traded, but obviously Wilson sort of. I mean, I think it's fair to say that he felt that Wilson's influence was wrong within Seattle's locker room, maybe, or that he was getting too much attention and that it's gone sour. I think that's what he was referring to, which indicates that maybe there's. Do you know what? I watched a video with Jim Nagy posted a tweet a couple of hours before this trade was announced, and it was him at a quarterback convention of some kind. You know, young quarterbacks were there. I think there's a coaching thing that Jim is part of, and he was giving a speech. And it really resonated with me because he said, guys, you need to, he says, when you're at school, you need to, even by in and out of class, you need to be touching base with your teammates. You need to have those connections with your teammates so that you can't expect to build that connection when you're on the field and you need a key third down in the fourth quarter. He says, the guys that you bring with you in that environment, in that scenario, you've got to have won them round months before you actually get to that down and distance, because that's when they're going to win the game for you. You need to sort of put the effort in around the clock, around the year to be with your guys. And then he made reference and said, so there's a term in the NFL that celebrity quarterbacks are the worst thing that you can have, because they take the eye off the ball, they don't connect with their teammates, and it's a big problem. Don't be one of those. You need to do that. And I sat there and I thought, well, the Seahawks have got a celebrity quarterback. You know, he's on Ellen begging his wife to have more kids this week. You know, he brings out perfume. He has a sandwich named after him. You know, he is a celebrity quarterback. And if he has been acting like the proverbial worst case celebrity quarterback over the years, perhaps people like Bobby and others and DK Metcalf have just thought, not for me. And maybe actually somebody coming in, and we were talking about this, Jeff, specific to Matt Corral, there is a great documentary series that Ole Miss put online, sort of behind the scenes. And I would recommend that all Seahawks fans, after you've finished watching this, not before, after, go and watch that, because the way that the teammates in Ole Miss talk about him and the way that it shows him how he is in his character, he is the ultimate competitor. And he seems very genuine. And I can imagine him walking into a team and commanding respect. You mentioned Malik Willis. When I was watching him during the combine, I was worried for some of the same reasons. Worried not as much as perhaps I am now, because I'm stood there watching him essentially have a deep ball competition with Carson Strong. throwing it 65 yards downfield with his big arm. And I'm thinking John Schneider loves big physical quarterbacks who can throw the ball downfield like this. And they love people who are mobile and can improvise and scramble around. And they may well just see this guy as somebody who can create magic. But he can't do more than one read. He sets off running as soon as the read isn't there. He makes bizarre decisions. His mechanics lead to turnovers. That's the only saving grace, is that his mechanics lead to turnovers. And we know Pete Carroll is risk averse. We've had this super chat from Zorn. It says, Jeff, here is $10 to give to Evan Hill for a glass of red wine. Is he upset about this or something?
Well, there's a segment of the Seahawks fan base that has just almost become Russell over the Seahawks. And a lot of it's created by the idea that if Russell had an offensive coach, that he would have been maximized and the team would have been in a much better situation. So there's just been a lot of distrust with the for the franchise. And Evan is one of those guys. He is as anti-Pete Carroll as you can find. And there's a pretty good case for being anti-Pete Carroll. So in Evan's world, the way I would interpret just talking to him a little bit today is that he believes the franchise chose their 70-year-old head coach over their franchise quarterback, which I can understand why someone came to that conclusion. So to him, it's just like the worst possible scenario. He doesn't trust the team to fix the problems. He thinks Drew Lock will probably be the quarterback. But I know there's a segment of the fan base that's probably thinking that. I think we need to see what happens next. If they come out and crush this draft, the whole thing will feel different. And like I will understand why they moved on from Russell Wilson, because Rob, you said so many times they just couldn't keep doing this song and dance year after year, and they were just crushing fan interest. They were crushing the direction of the team, and they were just leaving a roster that had no chance of competing. And frankly, like Russell, he looked like he hit a ceiling as a player. I'm very curious to see how he plays in Denver now. He went from the best division in the AFC to the best division in the AFC. So it's
great point.
That division has Mahomes and Justin Herbert. So you went from Jimmy G and Goff to that. And now you got Josh Allen, Joe Burrow. Man, if you talk about playoff games in the NFC being hard to win, you got to win playoff game against Mahomes, Herbert, Josh Allen, Burrow. I'm missing some. The Titans are pretty damn good. Is
Denver's roster really that good? I mean, like he's gone from throwing to Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf to Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like
KJ Hamler.
They got some players.
They got good running backs.
Yeah, they got Javonte Williams. But Russell wants to throw the ball around.
Is their O-line really that good?
No.
They've got Bradley Chubb and Patrick Surtain, and they've got a really good safety.
That's about it. It's not a Super Bowl winning team. So that's sort of the irony of the whole thing. Like they're now in a position to probably lose in the first round.
Well, it'd be amusing. I mean, if that happened. Do you know what else is really amusing as well? How disappointed is Aaron Rodgers today? That he basically got an hour of media coverage and then this trade happened. He would have been absolutely devastated by that. I'm going to make the news today, everybody. Aaron Rodgers is staying in Green Bay. And then like an hour later, forget that, Aaron. Russell Wilson's just been traded to Denver because of you. So there you go. That is interesting. There was something else that I was going to ask you, and my mind has gone completely blank. I can't remember what it was. It was a really great point as well, and I would say that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think what it would be.
Rob, you think about it. I want to ask Jeff a question.
Go for it.
Of the free agent classes, other than we know that Drew Lock is coming in, is there anybody else that you think that we might bring in? We talked earlier about Tyrique Taylor, but is there anybody else that you think that they might bring in to compete if they don't draft a quarterback?
Yeah, I need to study this. I think Drew Lock fits sort of the same mold as Tyrique Taylor. Tyrique Taylor would make sense because he's such a good locker room guy. That's the one thing he's known for. He can be a stopgap, and he's just way more of the Pete Carroll quarterback. Drew Lock is not a Pete Carroll quarterback at all. He's a turnover guy. He doesn't take the safe play. Tyrique Taylor actually makes a lot of sense. Some speculate Cam Newton. I don't know. His shoulder looks shot. I don't see the point of that. That makes no sense to me. I don't think they'll get in the bidding for Mitchell Trubisky or Andy Dalton. But I know
there was rumor that that they loved Andy Dalton coming out. So
yeah, there was a lot of talk actually. Scott McLuhan talked about this, that John Schneider wanted to draft Andy Dalton and Pete vetoed him. He didn't think that Pete, if you look back at his history, they had 5-star quarterbacks at USC all the time. So people will say like Pete likes a crappy quarterback like Mark Sanchez and Matt Barkley. Those guys were the number 1 recruits in the country.
Matt Barkley was like the star quarterback.
I know. I think it was Ben Albright saying like, yeah, like they don't like him because he's not a low risk quarterback or something. I don't know what he's talking. But yeah, I need to dive deeper. I don't know if Geno Smith will be back now that Drew Lock is there. I'm curious. Yeah, like I don't know if they take Matt Corral in the second round, that sort of makes sense where you have Lock and Corral. That makes sense of the depth chart. But if they don't draft a quarterback, they're gonna need to bring someone else in because unless their plan is to totally tank this year, I don't see the value of Drew Lock. So it's so curious to see what they do now. Teddy Bridgewater, I don't know if they want to rebuild the Bridgewater Lock combo from Denver.
I hope not. I mean, that the one thing you can say for Locke is that at least he's got an arm. Teddy Bridgewater, the check downs and the throwing, 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage because it's Teddy Bridgewater. I can't be dealing with that. I think Drew Lock's a shot to nothing, really, is it? Nobody expects Drew Lock to be a long-term answer. I mean, I think most people don't think he's a short-term answer for the Seahawks, but you throw him into camp, don't you? And the one thing is that if you have Tyrod Taylor and Drew Lock, you've got NFL experience in your quarterback room, and if the draft doesn't work out the way you want it to, it's not the end of the world. You go on for next year, and who knows what happens over 12 months? I mean, who knows? Who knows what's going to happen with the quarterbacks? Suddenly if there's a quarterback that's trying to like flirt with leaving somewhere, he becomes an option for the Seahawks. I mean, look, what are the Colts going to do with Carson Wentz? I mean, do I want Carson Wentz in Seattle? Not particularly. Is there a chance that if he's released by the Colts in the next 7 days, that the Seahawks would bring him in as competition as well? And you would have to say that's probably as good an option as Carson Wentz is going to get, isn't it? To come and start in a system like this. Again, he's an NFL starter. Is he going to challenge? I mean, look, this is the thing. I mean, I'm not expecting to win the NFC West this year, but I'm happy with that. I'm not bothered. For me, it's the start of something, not if they'd have gone into free agency, status quo, run it back sort of mentality, and then they miss out on the big names and we're shopping in the bargain bin again and coming out with the same issues that we always have. That's just a precursor to more of the same, and it's not exciting. The aggressive approach would perhaps have elevated Seattle into a contender, but there's no guarantee there. Now we're embracing that this is going to be 2-3 years down the line when the Seahawks are going to be a competitive team again. I'm happy with that. I don't expect to win in 2022. It's a journey. We're at the start of another journey now.
That's the thing. That's what they needed, right? Like, I don't know if a 70-year-old coach is the most logical place for that kind of plan, but that's another conversation. But they just needed to reinvite energy into this whole organization, try something different. Like you said, they're not good unless they crush a quarterback in the draft and have a draft like New Orleans in 2017. They're not going to be very good next year. And that's fine. They need to build a team that when they get their next quarterback, they're ready to win. And that's the whole point of this thing, because they don't have a good enough pass rush right now. Their offensive line is built poorly. I'm just so curious what happens, how they approach their defense now. Because if you're earmarking a pass rusher 9th overall, so what do you use that cap room on? They have over $40 million in cap room now with this trade. And could be a lot more if Bobby's no longer here, or if they extend Bobby. So that could be $50 million in cap room. They should be trying to get as many young players as they can.
Can I just say, I'm happy to have 49ers fans in the chat and Broncos fans. Keep it civil, guys. I'm up for a bit of banter as much as anybody, but some of the language that is being used is it's inappropriate. We're here to talk about trade, and we've said this already, Robbie. I'm sure you're the same, Jeff. I wish Russell Wilson all the best in Denver, and if the Seahawks are not going to win the Super Bowl in 2022, if Russell does it, I'll say well done, Russ. There's absolutely no ill feeling towards him there or the Broncos. I mean, at the end of the day, we hammered you guys in a Super Bowl, so and you're never gonna live that down. So, whatever. We move on from that. I still want to see them move on from Bobby Wagner. I don't think he's the same. I don't think he's worth it. I don't want to extend him. I don't want to keep that. Robbie, you were there again. Just reminders. You were at the combine. You saw those workouts live. You're in Lucas Oil Field. The linebacker drills were the most energized,
incredible,
pumped drills for the guys that are running 4.4s, 4.5s. They're flying. Some of those, again, go and watch it. It's on YouTube, on the NFL YouTube channel. Go and watch those linebacker drills. They were moving around in the wave drill better than some of the defensive backs. They were turning direction, pivoting with loose hips, working brilliantly in space, in and out the bags, Robbie. They were shouting at each other. There was noise. It was alive. And if you can get me one of those guys, Christian Harris, Channing Tindall, Quay Walker, Trey Anderson, Chad Moomer, any of these guys, go and get one, man. Just go and bring one of those young, hungry linebackers in.
Yeah, I mean, that was my favorite day, hands down, at the combine. The defensive tackles and the linebackers were just getting it, man. That was a fun day. But yeah, I mean, I agree. You go out and get one of those guys and get some young, hungry defensive players that want to come out and hit somebody and make a play on the ball. I mean, that was the last time we talked about a Seahawks defense that was a turnover machine. I mean, if I can't remember the last time a cornerback got an interception or anything like that. So I'd love to see some guys that are going to come in and play with some fire and help us get the ball back. And I know a lot of people are going to be upset and who's going to play quarterback and these kind of things. But hey, if we're getting the ball because we're getting turnovers, and give somebody a young quarterback a chance. I don't know. I'm excited about the opportunities for sure.
Yeah,
very time period.
I think you're right. They need to inject speed into this defense. I don't think it makes sense to keep Bobby Wagner. There's a lot of talk about extending him. I think they should let Bobby go try to chase a title at this point of his career. Seahawks, frankly, aren't there. And like you're right, Channing Tindall is a player that Rob has shouted out a lot. Robbie was right. Their linebacker group was awesome. So we put him with Jordan Brooks, and you inject a new speed, a new aggressive defense. That's a group that you can build with moving forward. You got Brooks, Taylor, the 9th overall pick. Maybe you spend a 3rd-round pick on a linebacker. You got now it's 2 2nd-round picks. You have 2 4th-round picks. You have a good chance to rebuild the entire defense, like Rob said. You can really fix this group. I'm curious what happens now, like with DJ Reed, with Diggs. What happens with those guys? I have no idea. If you're Quandre, I don't think I want to resign, to be honest. I went through those years in Detroit. I think I want to play for a championship, but who knows? But I want to see them get as many young, hungry players on defense because they've just lacked that. The way they need to play. If you like Jermaine Johnson's a great one. If you have him and Taylor off the edge for the next few years, you add 2 Brooks and say a Tindall or another good linebacker, and you can add another top 50 pick in that group. That's a really, really exciting team. And then if you can try to fix up the O-line and try to keep the rest of the group in place, that's a much better thing than you're left off with when Russell and a bunch of guys and him carrying the load and then having a very uneven team. So, yeah, I think it would be crazy to keep Bobby Wagner based on the direction. Let's get some young players. Let's get more draft picks if we can.
But I personally hope they re-sign Quandre Diggs purely to eliminate any chance whatsoever of them spending the number 9 pick on a bloody safety. Just
fair.
Just to eliminate, or if it's not Quandre Diggs, just one of the others. Tyrann Mathieu, I don't care. Just don't spend number 9 on Kyle Hamilton or Lewis Sign. And look, Sign was amazing at the combine, ran superbly. And I was just saying the other day that the way that he hits, the way that he plays, is very much in the Seahawks kind of ballpark there. But pass rusher, please. I think that Jermaine Johnson will be the pick. And the only way he won't be the pick is if somebody picks him before number 9, or if Kayvon Thibodeau's there and they just decide that he's even better and that they buy into. But I would be doing my homework, and they will do. On Kayvon
what about Jordan Davis?
Well, Thanos is another option as well, isn't he?
That was your take the other day. I thought, like, if that 10th pick was in there, we'd be sitting there screaming like.
Yes. I mean, look, you can't go wrong, though, Jeff, and that's the exciting thing. if it's as long as it isn't the safety, or somebody suggested Devin Lloyd, please no, not Devin Lloyd at the middle linebacker. They've spent enough on linebackers and safeties. It's time to give the O-line and D-line a try. Look, some people like Charles Cross. They think Charles Cross is great. I'm not as sold on Charles Cross as a top 10 pick. I think he's more of a top 20 pick. But if they want to go for a young left tackle, they've got that option. If they want to get Jermaine Johnson, they've got that. They may have Kayvon Thibodeau. They may have Sauce Gardner. They may have Derek Stingley. They have got, Jordan Davis. Jordan Davis is just, for me, what a fantastic prospect of having a 340-pound defensive lineman who can run faster than Nick Bosa, who ran a faster 40 than Nick Bosa at 341 pounds. That is incredible. But I still think Jermaine Johnson will be good because I just think he brings. I think you're getting back to that with Taylor and Johnson, that dog mentality, that Marshawn and Cam mentality that those two will bring. They will be your leaders on the team moving forward, and you need some of those. And Jermaine Johnson had a great Senior Bowl. We know the Seahawks love players who do well there. Combine testing, he didn't do a great deal, just sort of ran the 40 and did a jump. But no agility testing marks there. I'm sure they'll want those at his pro day. But that's the exciting thing. We'll be concentrating on the Florida State Pro Day, the Oregon Pro Day, the Georgia Pro Day. We will be looking at these things to see the direction. Let me ask you both: is there any chance whatsoever that the Seahawks would turn around and have a conversation with, say, Houston or Las Vegas for Derek Carr? Is there any chance? I think that would be a terrible idea because now you are, if you've paid this for Russell Wilson, they're going to expect even more for one of those two, aren't they?
Yeah, it would go against everything they've accomplished. All the cap room they've created. You mentioned Kirk Cousins earlier this year too, as a guy I could see Pete and John liking.
Oh my word!
Yeah, I don't see the point of that. The whole value of this trade is that you could capitalize and got all this draft capital to just dump it on a lesser quarterback. It's hard to understand the rationale there, but this front office does things that make us scratch our heads all the time. So nothing would shock me, but I would think that would be very counterproductive. I don't see any value in giving up this draft capital to get a lesser quarterback.
Yeah, I totally agree. I don't think they'll turn around and go after Houston for Deshaun Watson. I see it more, I guess, on Derek Carr, but I think they're more probably inclined to go after someone like Ryan Fitzpatrick just for the year, and just have him play quarterback until they can figure out what they're really going to do if they're not going to draft somebody this year. But I have a hard time imagining they're going to trade the draft capital for, another quarterback. It's very counterproductive.
And you know what? If they don't get we're talking about fast physical players. If they don't resign Quandre Diggs, don't go and get the safety at number 9. You can get one in round 2 or 3. I mean, Nick Cross. Did anyone see Nick Cross? The way that he played, the way that he looked at the combine, looked absolutely fantastic. He is a big time talent there. That could easily be an option.
Rob, just to go on top of that, there's somebody asked. Sorry, there was a super chat that I just want to touch base on. Lewis asked, would they go after Sam Darnold?
Is there a super chat on that? Sorry, I missed that one completely.
Yeah.
Would they go after Sam? I mean, look, there is another super chat that I also want to, given that there's a lot of, let me see if I can get this on here. It's not letting me do it. Let's put this one on instead. I've kind of ruined the moment by not. Here we go.
So quickly, I don't know how accurate this is. I'm not watching TV.
Can I just point out quickly though that Jason has done a $43.08 super chat, and it is very clever there, Jason. Love your style. That's one for the Broncos fans there, and thank you very much. That very generous and humorous super chat. What were you going to say, Jeff?
So someone just texted me. I don't know how credible this is. I'm not watching this. Adam Schefter just said on TV that there's a lot of people in the NFL that thinks Seattle could be in on Watson.
Wow.
I don't know if that's out there yet, but that would surprise me.
I mean, here's the thing. I would only be in on Watson if
I think that'd be.
I don't know. I was going to say I'd only be in on him if the price was reflective of his situation.
Yeah, like Houston wants 5 picks, don't they?
If they said, his stock's down the toilet because everything that's going on, this legal case is dragging on. We just want to move on. We'll take a first rounder for him. Then that's one thing. But even then, I'd have my doubts. I'd prefer to go the cheaper route. I'd prefer to go in a different direction. I mean, how do you trust Deshaun Watson right now? I mean, that story's crazy.
Yeah,
he's written off a year of his career for this. I mean, sometimes you've got to know when to go, I'll let somebody else do that. And this feels like one of those moments. Let another GM and head coach make that move. I mean, look, they say they're always in on every move. So I'm sure that they'll keep the finger on the pulse just in case. And Deshaun Watson's a very talented football player. But that would be a controversial move, a very controversial move. And not because he's not talented, purely because of the circumstances with which he is available in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather just park that one, frankly.
Yeah, I agree. I don't love it, but I could see them being in on it. I don't know. I guess that's tough.
Okay. Well, I think we've done 2 hours, 20 minutes here, Robbie, which is a gallant effort. I don't think there's much else we can say on this other than, have you got a final thought about what has been a crazy, momentous day in Seahawks history?
Oh man, I don't know. Yeah, we've said a lot in the last 2.5 hours, and this is I know why people are pissed. I know why people are excited. It's a weird time, a lot of emotions. This is gonna, I guess we'll see kind of what happens in free agency. I think, I'm excited, Rob, to get to read some of your articles that are coming out about the quarterbacks now, since you do all the legwork for that. So I'm excited to kind of get a feel on the quarterbacks and what you think, and kind of do my own research on Matt Corral, and just kind of see what happens. I know a lot of people are saying Malik Willis, and I don't know. We'll see. It's interesting.
Jeff, final thought?
Yeah, I feel so many things right now. I'm grateful for probably the best pick in franchise history, getting a franchise quarterback in the third round, getting 10 years of pretty exciting play, Super Bowl, should have been 2. Yeah, could have been more if not for that one play call. But anyway, yeah, it's been a hell of a ride. But in the end, I'm not thrilled about the return. But it's understandable. I'm just kind of happy that this song and dance is over. I wish Russell the best in Denver. He's got a great chance to succeed now, but I'm just excited to have draft capital again, to get into the draft again, to see where things go from here. I'm just praying it's not Malik Willis and Drew Lock at quarterback next year. That would suck all the energy out of me. But yeah, I'm still thrown off. I did not think this. I thought 2023 was the natural separation time. So my head's still kind of spinning. I feel like this isn't really real yet. So I can't wait to hear what Pete and John end up saying on this, because I'm just curious their thoughts on Drew Lock and where things go from here. But knowing the CFL, yeah,
I think they should do a press conference. I said this earlier. I think it's such a big trade that it warrants them speaking to the media, but I'm guessing they won't do. But
yeah, Seattle PR is super protective with them. They're so bad at making them available. When it's like this happens, the fans need to hear.
They need to hear from them. I agree. I think it'd be worth doing something, even if it's just Pete going on 710 or whatever to talk to Mike Solk or whatever. He needs to speak and do something. I think that do you know what the strange thing about it, just to finish off from my perspective, is really that it did just happen. It was the Rodgers. You kind of felt the Rodgers news would come, and then maybe a few weeks of Wilson speculation, and then maybe something would happen, but probably not. But it was just so sudden. There was no time between Rodgers signing his contract and the Wilson trade being completed. It really just happened immediately out of the blue with no prior warning. It was just a train coming towards you with no way of getting out of the way. And here it is, Wilson off to Denver, and the Seahawks facing an uncertain future, but an exciting one, I think. And again, just to say, I have no confidence that they'll get this right, but I'm interested to see how it goes. And it is exciting. And I think that my final thought on everything would be, if you want to determine this as they've picked Pete Carroll over Russell Wilson, you're looking at it completely the wrong way. This franchise has decided they don't want to pay Russell Wilson $45 to $50 million a year. He has wanted to move on. He has made that clear. That is what that tweet from Adam Schefter was a year ago about those 4 teams that he'd be willing to go to. And that talk has never stopped for 12 months. Wilson wanted to move on. I suspect the Seahawks wanted to move on. They didn't want to pay him next year, regardless of what would have happened. And they've done the mature thing and parted ways in a decent way. It's not got ugly. It seems like it's just been an amicable split, that no one's leaked it anywhere. It's happened. The trade has been consummated. The Seahawks move in one direction, the Broncos move in the other. And now we've got a whole week of talking about how they're going to spend that cap money. We've got a few weeks of talking about how they're going to use those draft picks. We've got a lot of quarterback tape to watch. I'm sure that everybody will be rushing off to watch highlights of the big name quarterbacks in this draft now, and some of these other guys. And I find that exciting. And I'm looking forward to writing the article I'm about to start writing in about 15 minutes time, which will take a couple of hours, I think, and getting it out on the blog and just seeing what everybody thinks about this. But exciting times. Jeff, always appreciate you jumping on with us, and especially doing that. And Robbie, for being here for 2.5 hours listening to me wittering on is quite an achievement. You deserve a medal.
You got it, buddy. It was fun. I was here for it.
Nice one. Right, guys, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video, spread the message around. If you didn't catch all of it, we had Joe Fann at the start as well. Go back and watch all of that. I'm sure we'll be reacting if there's any other big news very soon, so stay with us on the channel. Until then, have a great night. Bye for now.